Chapter 1123. Nyeyangwon, what do you mean by this? How dare you start a massacre in the Crimson Cloud tribe? The four divine heavenly sovereigns of the Crimson Cloud tribe walked up slowly with murderous intent. One of them looked at Nyeyangwon and roared with murderous intent. The person who spoke was none other than the super expert who'd sent Murongyu into the Blood Lake with a single palm strike. Nyeyangwon glanced at the four divine heavenly sovereigns and took a step back to stand behind Murongyu. The four divine heavenly sovereigns of the Crimson Cloud tribe were stunned. What was going on? Not only did Nyeyangwon retreat to stand behind Murongyu, but his expression was also extremely respectful. Could this person be from a top force? Could he be an expert from the Golden Feather tribe? It was said that the Wind Cloud tribe and the Golden Feather tribe had been very close recently. If he was from a Golden Feather tribe, did they want to subdue or suppress the Crimson Cloud tribe? In an instant, the divine heavenly sovereigns of the Crimson Cloud tribe had this thought. They looked at each other and then at Murongyu. "It's you?" When Kong Yang saw Murongyu, he couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He had a deep impression of Murongyu. Only Murongyu would dare to take advantage of dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns. "You're not dead." Kong Yang's face was filled with shock. He clearly remembered that he had slapped Murongyu into the lake of blood. At that time, although Murongyu was fast, he was only a divine heavenly sovereign. Even if Kong Yang was slapped into the blood lake, he would not be able to come out alive. But now, Murongyu was standing in front of him, alive and well. He could not help but be shocked. Murongyu took a step forward, a cold smile on his face as he looked at Kong Yang. "You seem to be very shocked, don't you? In 10,000 years ago, I was only at the peerless stage, right? You're a high-level saint, heavenly 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 saint." Kong Yang's face darkened. At this time, the others finally understood why Murongyu wanted to seek revenge. It turned out that he had been ambushed. Despicable. Shameless. Gu Kai and Situ Xian immediately cursed. In particular, Gu Kai had a look of disdain on his face. If he had the strength, he would definitely rush out and beat the shameless Kong Yang to death. After hearing Murongyu's words, the other three divine sovereigns from the Crimson Cloud tribe and the people nearby all looked at Kong Yang. Disbelief, shock, anger, doubt, and even disdain. Divine heavenly sovereigns were respected wherever they went because they were superior and untouchable. Such a person shouldn't sneak attack a junior. If he wanted to kill someone, he could do it directly instead of sneaking up on someone. Of course, it was normal to sneak up on someone of the same or higher level, but to sneak up on someone who was many times weaker than him. At this moment, many people from the Crimson Cloud tribe were disappointed. They were disappointed in Kong Yang. For a moment, Kong Yang's prestige in the Qiyun tribe skyrocketed, far less than the other three divine grades. Noticing this, Kong Yang flew into a rage. "Murongyu, don't talk nonsense. Why would I sneak up on you?" Kong Yang was furious. He took a step forward and slowly approached Murongyu. Seeing this, Nyeyangwon did not do anything. He just looked at Kong Yang indifferently. "Really? You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it. Is the Qiyun tribe full of shameless people? Since that's the case, I'll get rid of a shameless existence like you on behalf of the Scarlet Cloud tribe." Murongyu took a step forward. "Die!" Kong Yang suddenly roared and took a step forward. He was already in front of Murongyu, his hand reaching out to grab Murongyu. He could not see through Murongyu's cultivation. This was because Murongyu's cultivation was much higher than his. However, it was because of this that he attacked so fiercely. He was almost going all out. "You're overestimating yourself." Murongyu sneered. He did not use any moves, but only a punch. Boom! Kong Yang's power was directly smashed into powder. On the other hand, Murongyu's fist didn't stop in the slightest as it continued forward. It was as if his fist had broken through the endless space and time as it landed on Kong Yang's chest. After a loud bang, Kong Yang let out a scream. Then, everyone present saw Kong Yang, a top divine grade expert, was sent flying like a broken rag. What? Seeing this scene, everyone from the Scarlet Cloud tribe was shocked and all of their faces were filled with horror. Didn't they say that Murong Yu was only at the peerless divine grade 10,000 years ago? How could he send Kong Yang flying with a punch after 10,000 years? Kong Yang was a super expert at the third heaven of the divine grade. In other words, Murong Yu not only rose from the peerless divine grade to the divine grade in 10,000 years, but he also surpassed Kong Yang. Impossible. How can you be stronger than me? Kong Yang slammed into the ground, creating a huge crater in the ground. However, he quickly rose from the ground and roared as he charged toward Murong Yu. Ancestor Kong Yang must have underestimated Murong Yu and was accidentally sent flying. Yes, that must be it. Although the people in the Qian tribe were disappointed in Kong Yang, he was the ancestor of the Qian tribe, so they would definitely support him. Is that so? I'll hit you in the chest again and send you flying again. Murong Yu smiled. As he spoke, the crowd saw Murong Yu's figure flicker and disappear from where he stood. Bang! When Murong Yu reappeared, he had already punched Kong Yang in the chest. A huge force erupted and sent Kong Yang, who had been prepared for it, flying again. Everyone in the Qiyun tribe felt their hearts sink. They had to admit that Murong Yu was indeed stronger than Kong Yang. Kong Yang, you can kill yourself. Murong Yu indifferently said as he stood in the air and looked at Kong Yang, who had been sent flying several thousand miles away. Kong Yang's face was gloomy and his eyes were filled with killing intent. It was impossible for him to kill himself. Enough. Murong Yu, you can leave now. At this moment, the other three divine heavenly experts of the Qian tribe rushed over with gloomy faces and surrounded Murong Yu again. Although they disdained Kong Yang's behavior, he was the ancestor of the Qian tribe, so they could not stand by and do nothing. Murong Yu glanced coldly at the three of them and said in a deep voice, "Are you going to intervene in Kong Yang's matter? Is the Qian tribe going to help him?" Kong Yang is the ancestor of the Qian tribe, one of the three said in a deep voice. In that case, all of you can come at me together. But I'm warning you in advance that once you attack, the Qian tribe will be my enemy. As for me, I have always killed all my enemies. If you don't want the Qian tribe to be destroyed, you'd better get out of my way. Ha! Boy, you're too arrogant. Do you think you're a match for the four of us? You're strong, but are you a match for the four of us? One of the divine, heavenly experts laughed. A smile appeared on Murong Yu's face. His figure flickered, and he suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the divine heavenly expert who was laughing was suddenly enveloped by a strong sense of danger. Turning pale with fright, he was about to retreat in an instant. However, it was too late, Bang. Murong Yu had appeared in front of him without him noticing, and Murong Yu's fist had already landed on his chest. After a loud thud, he suffered the same fate as Kong Yang. He was sent flying by Murong Yu. You're courting death. How dare you? Seeing Murong Yu attack, the other two divine heavenly experts of the Qian tribe were enraged. They roared in unison and attacked Murong Yu at the same time. Murong Yu stood there as if he did not see them. Kill him. The people of the Qian tribe were stunned when they saw their two ancestors being sent flying by Murong Yu. At that moment, someone managed to react and shouted angrily, "Kill him." The rest of the people of the Qian tribe reacted and roared in unison. Not bad at all. Murong Yu faintly smiled. When the two divine heavenly sovereigns' attacks were about to reach him, he suddenly threw out two punches. Boom! Boom! Without any suspense, the two old ancestors were directly sent flying. At that moment, the entire place was silent. I'll give you one more chance. Kong Yang, kill yourself, and I'll let the Qian tribe go. Otherwise, the Qian tribe will be famous in this world today. Murong Yu floated in the sky and looked down at the people of the Qian tribe. His voice was faint, but it was like the voice of the Grim Reaper. Whoosh! Everyone of the Qian tribe looked at Kong Yang. Murong Yu was too powerful. Those divine, heavenly experts were sent flying by his punch. What could the Qian tribe use to fight against him? If Murong Yu wanted to destroy the Qian tribe, it would only take a thought. Whether the Feather tribe would be destroyed or not depended on whether Kong Yang would kill himself. Ha ha! Kong Yang rose into the sky and laughed. Murong Yu, Do you think these ants of the Chian tribe are more valuable than my life? Using my life in exchange for theirs? They don't deserve it. Whoosh! Everyone in the Scarlet Cloud tribe was stunned at this moment. Then they all reacted. Damn, this old bastard. We treated him like an ancestor, but he treats us like ants. I must be blind. I used to respect this old bastard so much. Damn it. At that moment, everyone of the Chian tribe was furious. All of them were enraged and wanted to kill Kong Yang with their own hands. Chapter 1124. Whoosh! While the Chian tribe was raging with anger, Kong Yang's figure flashed, and he had already fled into the distance. That old bastard actually ran away. The Crimson Cloud tribe was even more furious when they saw Kong Yang running away. If they had the strength, they would definitely chase after him. Unfortunately, the three divine heavenly sovereigns from the Crimson Cloud tribe stood on the ground with ashen faces. They watched Kong Yang's figure disappear from their sight, but they did not stop him. After all, they had been friends for countless years. Although they only found out that Kong Yang was such a person in the end, they did not have the heart to kill him. Murong, who was floating in the air, glanced at the people below indifferently. Then, the angelic wings appeared on his back out of thin air. In the next moment, Murong flapped the angelic wings hard. With a whoosh, he disappeared from everyone's sight. So fast, everyone was shocked to see this, including Yang Qin and the rest. Ha, a bunch of idiots. Do you still want to exchange my life for yours? Dream on. Kong Yang sneered as he flew through the void. Suddenly, Kong Yang vaguely felt that something was wrong. It seemed like someone was following him. He immediately turned his head to look. However, he just happened to see a black dot shooting towards him at an extremely terrifying speed. What a terrifying speed! Kong Yang's pupils constricted, and his face was filled with shock. But very quickly, he seemed to have remembered something. His expression changed abruptly, and he suddenly sped up and shot forward. Kong Yang, do you think you can escape? At this moment, Murong-Yu's indifferent voice rang in his ears. At the same time, Kong Yang felt a gust of wind sweep past him. Then, his speed came to an abrupt halt. This was because Murong-Yu was right in front of him, looking at him with a smile. Whoosh! Kong Yang's expression changed, and he flew to the side in a flash. However, he soon stopped in his tracks. This was because Murong-Yu was standing in front of him again, looking at him with the same smile. Kong Yang's face darkened, and he fled in another direction. However, no matter how he changed his direction, Murong-Yu always appeared in front of him. Murong-Yu's speed was many times faster than Kong Yang's. In terms of speed, Kong Yang was completely defeated. What do you want? Kong Yang stopped and glared at Murong-Yu. Kill you. Murong-Yu smiled faintly, took a step forward, and punched out fiercely. Boom! Before Kong Yang could even react, he was sent flying by Murong-Yu's attack. Ha! Is that all you've got? Kong Yang suddenly burst into laughter. This was the third time he'd been sent flying by Murong-Yu. However, he was only sent flying. He was not injured at all. It was as if Murong-Yu did not have the ability to injure him at all. Murong-Yu shook his head, thinking that Kong Yang was too ignorant. The reason he did this was to toy with Kong Yang. After all, when he was knocked into the blood lake by Kong Yang, his anger and resentment would not disappear just by killing Kong Yang. However, Murong-Yu had achieved his goal after toying with Kong Yang so many times and ruining his reputation. Immediately, he took a step forward and punched out again. Haha, come on, kill me. Kong Yang laughed, and Murong-Yu attacked him without moving. You could die now. Murong-Yu sneered and punched out. After a loud bang, Kong Yang felt that his body and even his soul were torn into billions of pieces. Why is this happening? Kong Yang had this question in his mind, and it was also his last question. Then he died. Murong-Yu took Kong Yang's storage ring and shook his head. It's boring. Everything in the desolate world is boring. I'll quickly get the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul, then find the 8 passages to leave the desolate world and go back to the God realm first. Or I'll destroy the desolate world's heart first. When Murong-Yu returned to the Scarlet Cloud tribe, he found that it was completely silent. No one attacked Gu Kai and the others, and no one escaped. Kong Yang has been killed. Murong-Yu glanced at the three divine heavenly sovereigns of the Red Cloud tribe and said lightly. Hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The three divine heavenly sovereigns were the same. Murong-Yu, do you really want to wipe out the Red Cloud tribe? A divine heavenly sovereign walked up and looked at Murong-Yu gloomily. That's what I planned to do, but now I've changed my mind. If you can join the Xiyang tribe, I'll let bygones be bygones. Gu Kai was shocked and hurriedly ran up. Master, the Xiyang tribe is still too weak, and without you, the Xiyang tribe will have one less divine heavenly sovereign. If the Red Cloud tribe can join the Xiyang tribe, the strength of the Xiyang tribe will skyrocket, Murong-Yu explained. But the Red Cloud tribe is much stronger than the Xiyang tribe. If they join the Xiyang tribe, we won't be able to control them. In the end, the Xiyang tribe will be destroyed by them, Gu Kai said worriedly. If the Red Cloud tribe joined the Xiyang tribe's strength would skyrocket overnight. But how could the Xiyang tribe control these divine heavenly sovereigns? In addition to the divine heavenly sovereigns, the Red Cloud tribe had many peerless and supreme sovereigns. Since I dared to let them join the Xiyang tribe, I naturally thought about this problem. Murong-Yu smiled confidently and looked at the three divine heavenly sovereigns. We're willing to join the Xiyang tribe. Seeing Murong-Yu look at them, the three divine heavenly sovereigns immediately said, compared to being destroyed by Murong-Yu, it was better to join the Xiyang tribe. Although it was no different from destroying the Red Cloud tribe, at least their people wouldn't die. Very good. Murong-Yu nodded and took a step forward, arriving beside them. Then, with one punch each, he directly knocked out the three divine heavenly sovereigns. Soul control. Murong-Yu directly controlled the souls of these three people. Who could be more loyal than the person who controlled their souls? After controlling them, Murong-Yu immediately ordered, go to the Xiyang tribe immediately and help Yanlai of the Xiyang tribe expand their territory and develop the tribe. Yes, Holy Lord. The three of them respectfully left. Master, you're too good to us. Gu Kai can't repay you. Gu Kai looked at Murong-Yu with gratitude, almost shedding tears of gratitude. This is the only thing I've done for the Xiyang tribe. Whether the Xiyang village takes the opportunity to rise or be destroyed by other tribes in the end, it depends on their luck. Murong-Yu, should we go to the Green Sun tribe now? Situ Xian came up with a dark face and asked angrily. Murong-Yu was confused. When did he offend this woman? Don't you want the blood crystal flower? Murong-Yu looked at Situ Xian and asked with a smile. Situ Xian was stunned. Her dark face now showed a touch of surprise. Are you going to grab the blood crystal flower? Give it to me? Situ Xian was full of joy, thinking that Murong-Yu was going to grab the blood crystal flower and give it to her. However, Murong-Yu shook his head. If we were in the depths of the blood crystal mine, maybe the blood crystal flower would be yours. But now it belongs to whoever grabs it. Situ Xian was angry, stingy. If you're not stingy, why don't you ask the Green Sun tribe to grab the blood crystal flower and give it to me? Murong-Yu said disdainfully. Situ Xian fell silent. How could she give away the treasure that was related to becoming a saint to others? If it were her, she would not be so generous. Situ Xian said disdainfully, maybe the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul have already been refined. How could it be your turn? That's where you're wrong. The blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul were grabbed by two super experts, but they definitely haven't refined them yet. Because the whole wasteland world is chasing after them. They're busy running for their lives now. So how could they have time to refine them? These were all from Yangwen. He learned it from the memories of the holy heavenly experts in the Red Cloud tribe. These people were not strong enough, and they were worried that their tribes would be attacked after they left, so they did not leave. However, many holy heavenly experts in the wasteland world were on the move, chasing after the two experts who had the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul. However, they had been running for their lives, so Murong-Yu did not know where they were. Therefore, after leaving the Red Cloud tribe, they came to Chiozhou City. In the wasteland world, other than the tribes, there were many cities. In fact, the tribes in the wasteland world were like the forces in the God realm. It was just that the names were different. Chiozhou City was a super city in the middle of the wasteland world. Legend had it that it was controlled by more than 10 top tribes, so it was very prosperous and lively. Murongyu even saw a teleportation formation in Chiozhou City. This was the first time he saw a teleportation formation in the wasteland world. Let's go to the restaurant first. Murongyu silently read the memories of an upper-class true god, so he had a rough understanding of Chiozhou City. Then, he led Yangqin and the rest to the most luxurious restaurant in the city. Regardless of the world, a restaurant was the best place to obtain information other than those intelligence organizations. However, before Murongyu and the rest could get close to the restaurant, they could feel waves of oppressive aura coming from the direction of the restaurant. The aura was surging and the blood was boiling. It was the aura of a holy heavenly expert, and it was not just one holy heavenly expert. There were at least 10 holy heavenly experts. Chapter 1125. Dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns. Even if Chiozhou City was controlled by dozens of top tribes at the same time, it was impossible for so many sovereigns to appear at the same time. Something big must have happened. Furthermore, Murongyu could clearly see the pedestrians hurriedly rushing forward. Murongyu's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately quickened his pace and walked forward. Tianyuan Restaurant was the most high-end restaurant in Chiozhou City, and its business was booming. At this moment, the atmosphere in the huge restaurant was very strange. Usually, the restaurant would be filled with guests and bustling with noise and excitement. However, it was deserted today, and there were only dozens of people in the restaurant. However, there were many sovereigns gathered outside the restaurant. There were peerless sovereigns, supreme sovereigns, and sovereigns of every rank. These people looked at the restaurant anxiously, but no one dared to step into it. This was because the dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns in the restaurant were all powerful. How could people of their rank be qualified to be with them? It was not that they could not enter the restaurant just because the divine, heavenly sovereigns were eating. Today, the dozens of quasi-saint sovereigns were not eating there, but discussing something. Only divine, heavenly sovereigns were qualified to discuss with them. Go away, go away. At this moment, a loud voice was heard from behind the crowd. Then, the crowd that was originally standing in a dense crowd was forcibly parted to create a path for him. Then, a group of 5 people strode toward the restaurant. There was no hesitation. Damn it, why are you squeezing? Do you believe that I'll beat you to death? They were standing in the same place, but they were suddenly pushed aside by others. Some people with bad tempers immediately started cursing. On the other hand, some people were only angry in their hearts, but they didn't dare to say anything. This was because they knew that those who dared to push them aside and walk toward the restaurant must be powerful. Otherwise, why would they dare to do such a thing? Humph! As expected, when some of the angry people wanted to attack Murongyu and the rest, a cold snort was heard. Suddenly, these people trembled as if they had been electrocuted. Some of them could not take it and spat out blood. How could they withstand the cold snort of a divine, heavenly expert? This was because Nie Yangwan didn't kill anyone, otherwise everyone around him would have been killed by him. Soon, Murongyu's group arrived in front of the restaurant. Then, under the gazes of the people outside the restaurant, he strode in. The restaurant was originally quiet, but when Murongyu and his group walked over, dozens of quasi-saint experts couldn't help but look over. Of course, their gazes were only on Nie Yangwan. Murongyu, a ninth heaven saint stage expert, had been overlooked by them once again. Get out of here. A divine heavenly sovereign was clearly displeased by this. When he saw that Murongyu and the others were not divine heavenly sovereigns, he immediately said in a deep voice. Nie Yangwan frowned slightly. He glanced at Murongyu, but didn't say anything. Seeing this scene, some people frowned slightly. They could all see that Nie Yangwan was asking for permission from his eyes. Could this young man have a higher status than Nie Yangwan? As a result, many people's gazes gathered on Murongyu. They couldn't see through Murongyu's strength. However, they didn't think that Murongyu was a ninth heaven saint grade expert. because that was impossible. Go to his table and ask him to get out. Murong glanced around and saw that there were still many empty seats in the restaurant. However, he pointed at the table of the divine, heavenly sovereign who had spoken earlier. As he spoke, Murong group of 5 had already walked over to the table. Smack! The divine, heavenly sovereign was enraged. He slammed his palm on the table, and the entire table was sent flying. He abruptly stood up and glared at Murong with a murderous look. Little bastard, did your elders teach you the difference in status? Or are you deaf? Can't you hear me? Murong frowned slightly. You have a foul mouth. You should be slapped. Before he could finish his sentence, everyone saw Murong figure flicker and disappear from where he stood. At that moment, the divine heavenly sovereign suddenly felt a strong sense of danger shrouding his heart. Immediately, he was greatly shocked. However, before he could react, an extremely clear sound of a slap resounded in his ears. At the same time, he felt a burning pain on the left side of his face. The divine heavenly sovereign was stunned and couldn't react in time. At the same time, the other divine heavenly sovereigns in the restaurant narrowed their eyes in shock. How fast! Everyone was stunned by Murong strength. Who is this young man? How can he be so powerful? I've never heard of him before. Isn't that Nye from the Crimson Cloud tribe? Could he be in one of the top tribes? Someone guessed Murong identity, while someone recognized Nye. At that moment, Murong had already returned to his original position. Little bastard, how dare you hit me? The divine heavenly sovereign who was slapped was furious and murderous. Murong's slap didn't really hurt him. However, that slap had deeply humiliated him. He was a divine heavenly sovereign. You must die. The divine heavenly sovereign roared in his heart. He took a step forward and pounced on Murong. Seeing this, the other divine heavenly sovereigns had already secretly increased their abilities. They didn't want to be involved in the battle between the two powerhouses. However, Gukai and the others who were standing behind Murong looked calm and didn't react. They had strong confidence in Murong and knew that the divine heavenly sovereign couldn't do anything to Murong. You're overestimating yourself. Murong sneered. He took a step forward and threw a punch. The two men's fists collided in midair. However, it was different from what everyone had imagined. After the two fists collided, there was no earth-shattering explosion, nor was there any terrifying impact. It was like a clash between two brawny men in the mortal world. There was only a muffled sound. Thud, thud, thud. Both parties separated as soon as they collided. Murong stood where he was without a change in his expression. Even his clothes didn't move. As for his opponent, the divine heavenly sovereign, he was forced to retreat. During this process, the divine heavenly sovereign's face kept changing between red, green, and white. His eyes were filled with fear. Plop. In the end, the divine heavenly sovereign sat down on his original seat and looked at Murong in horror. Murong clapped his hands. You're overestimating yourself. You forced me to make a move. What's going on? Is the battle over just like that? Seeing Murong and the rest walking toward the divine heavenly sovereign's seat, the other divine heavenly sovereigns were confused. They didn't know what was going on. Get lost. When they arrived at the table, Murong and the rest sat down. Only Gukai went to the divine heavenly sovereign who was sitting in a daze. With a loud roar, his fan-sized palm slapped the divine grade expert's body. Just then, Murong's voice suddenly rang in Gukai's ears. Gukai, do you want to beat up a divine heavenly sovereign? At that time, Gukai replied without any hesitation, yes. Then slap him. Murong glanced at the divine heavenly sovereign who was sitting motionlessly in the chair from the corner of his eye. Gukai was shocked. Although he wanted to, did he dare to? The divine heavenly sovereign didn't even need to fight back. He could be killed with a slight shake. Why? Are you scared? Gukai gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Then this happened. How dare you? Seeing this, the divine heavenly sovereigns present were shocked. They didn't know where Gukai got his courage from. A supreme grade true god attacking a saint grade true god? Gukai was probably the first in history to do so. However, What shocked them even more was that the divine heavenly sovereign didn't move at all when Gukai attacked. Bang! The divine heavenly sovereign was sent flying by Gukai's slap under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Huff! Kacha! Kacha! In the air, the divine heavenly sovereign spat out blood. The others saw that the divine heavenly sovereign's body was breaking apart inch by inch. At that moment, they finally realized what was going on. It wasn't that the divine heavenly sovereign ignored Gukai and allowed him to attack. It was that he didn't have the ability to react. He had already been severely injured by Murongyu when he fought with Murongyu. The reason why he sat motionless on the chair was probably because he was enduring his injuries or healing them. Ha ha! A divine heavenly sovereign is nothing more than this. Gukai laughed out loud at this moment, looking very pleased. Puff! Hearing Gukai's words, the divine heavenly sovereign who was sent flying couldn't help but spit out blood. He was so angry. The other divine heavenly sovereigns' faces darkened. However, a considerable number of them looked at Murongyu with a trace of fear in their eyes. Murongyu's strength had already shocked them. I heard that you were discussing something. Continue. Murongyu's right middle finger tapped on the table as he glanced at the crowd and said calmly, I suddenly remembered that I have something to do in the tribe. I'll take my leave first. I'm going back to the tribe too. At that moment, those people finally reacted. They all excused themselves and were about to leave the restaurant. Whoever dares to take half a step out of this restaurant will have to bear the consequences. Murongyu's finger continued to tap on the table, making a thumping sound. However, this voice was like a holy hammer that ruthlessly pounded on their hearts. In an instant, everyone seemed to be frozen in place. They didn't dare to move. Chapter 11:26. Haha, I suddenly remembered that it's not that important, so I won't go back for the time being. A divine heavenly expert laughed, then walked back and sat down. The other experts in the tribe will deal with it themselves. It's fine if I don't go back. Another person walked back with a smile. Murongyu's strength was too terrifying. He had almost crippled the divine heavenly expert with one punch. If they were to attack together, perhaps a few of them would be able to leave this restaurant unscathed. However, who knew if they would be the ones killed by Murongyu? With Murongyu's strength, it would be too easy for him to kill them. Go ahead. Murongyu's gaze slowly swept across everyone's faces. In the end, he pointed at the saint expert sitting at the table next to him and said indifferently. The divine heavenly expert's pupil shrank, but he said without hesitation, 10,000 years ago, Yu Wenba snatched the blood crystal flower from the depths of the blood crystal mine and escaped. However, for a full 10,000 years, he was constantly being hunted down. Yu Wenba was chased for 10,000 years, so he didn't have time to refine the blood crystal flower. Now that he realized that he couldn't escape, he entered Yuntai Valley. We were discussing how to rush into Yuntai Valley to kill Yu Wenba and snatch the blood crystal flower. Murongyu nodded. How do you know that he didn't refine the blood crystal flower? It's been 10,000 years. You can't have been chasing him all the time. Impossible. It's extremely complicated to refine the blood crystal flower. It takes a long time to refine it. Moreover, he had to refine the blood crystal flower in one go. Otherwise, it's useless. The divine heavenly expert immediately explained. According to what he said, Yu Wenba really didn't have time to refine the blood crystal flower. However, now that he had entered Yuntai Valley, he had time to refine the blood crystal flower. Yuntai Valley was a dangerous place in Wasteland. It was said that even a divine heavenly expert couldn't come out after entering. It was full of danger. If Yu Wenba wasn't forced into a corner, he wouldn't have entered Yuntai Valley. Who has the immortal blood soul? Is he being chased? Yes, the undying blood soul was obtained by another person. That person was also being hunted, but he did not end up like Yu Wenba. Because of the relationship between the two of them, many divine heavenly sovereigns were diverted. Otherwise, they would have been killed long ago. Murongyu nodded and muttered to himself. These divine heavenly sovereigns were not the only ones chasing after Yu Wenba. Although there were many divine heavenly sovereigns in the restaurant, the strongest one was only at the 5th or 6th heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level. It was impossible for the divine heavenly sovereigns, who were more powerful, to be with them. They had already gone deep into the Yuntai Valley to look for Yu Wenba. Let's go too. Murong pondered for a moment before leaving with Yangqin and the others. Yu Wenba had been in the Cloud Platform Valley for a long time. If he had been any later, the blood crystal flower would have been refined by him. Even if he didn't refine it, it would be snatched away by others. At that time, what part of Murong would there be? Whoosh, seeing that Murong and the others had left. The people in the restaurant heaved a sigh of relief. It was as if the huge Saint Mountain that was floating above them had disappeared. Then, everyone left the restaurant and walked toward the Cloud Platform Valley. In fact, before Murong had entered the restaurant, they had already prepared to leave. After all, they were only in an alliance. The sky in the wilderness world was already a little gray, and the Cloud Platform Valley was even darker. From afar, it looked like chaos, and one could not see clearly. Roar! 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 Before they got close, Murong and the others could already feel a dull and terrifying roar coming from the depths of the Cloud Platform Valley. It must be the ferocious beasts in the Cloud Platform Valley. Murong, are we really going into the Cloud Platform Valley? Situ Xian, who was only at the Supreme Heavenly Sovereign level, was just standing outside the Cloud Platform Valley. She could not help but be shocked when she felt the faint, terrifying aura coming from the Cloud Platform Valley. She was different from Murong, who came from the God Realm, and Gukai, who came from Small Tribe. Situ Xian knew how terrifying the Cloud Platform Valley was. In addition to all kinds of powerful, ferocious beasts, there were also all kinds of dangerous places. Those places would definitely kill you unknowingly. Even Ye Yongwen could not help but change his expression. Under normal circumstances, Ye Yongwen would also form an alliance like the people in the restaurant. Only a few dozen people would be willing to enter the Cloud Platform Valley. If you are afraid, stay outside the Cloud Platform Valley. Murong glanced at everyone and said lightly. In fact, he was only talking to Situ Xian. Yangqin and Gukai would definitely be by Murong's side. As for Nyangwan, he was also under Murong's control and needed to be by his side. Situ Xian was the only one who did not have any relationship with Murong. Oomph. If you dare to go in, how can I not? Situ Xian glared at Murong, feeling that she was being underestimated by Murong. All right, let's go in then. Murong smiled faintly and took the lead to walk into the Cloud Platform Valley. At this moment, the dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns in the restaurant had already rushed over. Do you think they dare to enter the Cloud Platform Valley? It's best if all of them go in and die in there. The divine heavenly sovereign, who was almost killed by Murong with one punch, said with hatred. At this moment, his physical body had already recovered. However, he had used up a lot of energy. I don't think they dare to go in. As for the other three, the highest level is only at the supreme level. However, before this person could finish his sentence, Murong and the rest quickly entered the Cloud Platform Valley and disappeared from their sight. How dare he? I like to see how they die. Someone sneered, obviously unhappy with Murong. Roar. Not long after Murong and the rest entered the Cloud Platform Valley, a loud roar came from the front. Suddenly, Murong and the rest saw a ball of lightning streaking across the sky, carrying an extremely dangerous aura as it charged toward them. In an instant, everyone's hearts were shrouded by a strong sense of danger. Nye Yongwen roared and took a step forward, charging in front of Murong and the rest. Then, he threw out a punch. Boom! Crackle! Crackle! The attacks from both sides collided violently in the sky, erupting with an earth-shattering sound. In an instant, Murong and the others saw a large ball of lightning explode out, instantly sweeping out in all directions. The sky was instantly torn apart. Nye Yongwen let out a low growl as he was sent flying. However, that bolt of lightning wasn't any good either. It was also sent flying by the impact. The seismic thunder hidden beast, Situ Xian exclaimed as she recognized the beast. The seismic thunder hidden beast was one of the most common beasts in the Cloud Platform Valley. The weakest one was at the first heaven of the divine grade. The stronger ones could even reach the 7th or 8th heaven of the divine grade. There were even seismic thunder hidden beasts of the 9th heaven of the divine grade in the depths of the Cloud Platform Valley. Muronyu focused his gaze on the ferocious beast that had turned its head. It wasn't very large, but it looked somewhat similar to a wolf. However, this beast was much uglier than a wolf. In fact, it was several times more terrifying. At that moment, the seismic thunder hidden beast stood where it was, looking at Muronyu and letting out a low growl. What a strange beast. If it wasn't for the lightning on its body, we wouldn't be able to see it at all. If the seismic thunder hidden beast withdraws its lightning, it can hide in the void and be very difficult to find, Situ Xian explained with a serious expression. Roar! At that moment, the seismic thunder hidden beast roared angrily and pounced on Muronyu again. Nie Yongwen's face darkened as he dashed forward in a flash. Then, he started fighting with the seismic thunder hidden beast. They were evenly matched. Muronyu finally understood why the divine grade experts in the restaurant had formed an alliance. Even the most common beast in the Cloud Platform Valley was so powerful. Boom! 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 The two of them fought fiercely. During this process, Muronyu was even more surprised to see that the seismic thunder hidden beast could control the power of lightning. After a great battle, Nie Yongwen was electrified by the seismic thunder hidden beast. Because of this, Nie Yongwen was enraged. He was able to unleash his full strength. At first, they were evenly matched, but now he was suppressing the seismic thunder hidden beast. Whoosh! Just as Muronyu and the others were watching the fierce battle ahead, an extremely dangerous aura shrouded Gu Kai and the others. At the same time, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the void above their heads and pounced toward them. The second seismic thunder hidden beast had launched a sneak attack on Muronyu and the others. Moreover, its strength seemed to be stronger than the one Nie Yongwen was fighting. Gu Kai, Situ Xian, and Yangqin's faces instantly turned pale. If Muronyu was not here, they would not have been able to fight back, let alone escape. However, this seismic thunder hidden beast had obviously chosen the wrong target to launch a sneak attack on. You're overestimating yourself. Muronyu sneered and reached out his hand. The seismic thunder hidden beast charged out of the void, wanting to kill Muronyu and the others in one fell swoop. However, at this moment, it only saw a large hand cutting through the void, shattering the sky, and quickly grabbing at it. An extremely dangerous aura shrouded the seismic thunder hidden beast's heart in an instant. It growled and flashed, trying to escape. However, it was already too late. With a swoosh, Muronyu's large hand grabbed the seismic thunder hidden beast. Then, he exerted a little force. With a bang, the seismic thunder hidden beast did not even have time to scream before it was crushed and turned into a cloud of blood mist. It couldn't be more dead. What terrifying strength! The divine heavenly sovereigns who were not far behind Muronyu and the others had just caught up. However, they saw how easily Muronyu crushed the seismic thunder hidden beast. In an instant, they were all stunned. Swoosh! 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 While they were still in shock, the seismic thunder hidden beasts charged out of the dark and pounced on them one after another. In an instant, a few divine heavenly sovereigns were severely injured by these seismic thunder hidden beasts. Compared to Muronyu, their strength was nothing. Chapter 11:27. Previously, in the restaurant, Muronyu had almost crippled the divine heavenly sovereign with one punch. Although the crowd thought that Muronyu was powerful, they thought that he had caught his opponent off guard. However, when they saw Muronyu crush the hidden thunder beast with a single pinch, they were shocked. Especially when they personally faced the seismic thunder hidden beast, they knew how powerful it was. More than a dozen deafening thunders, hidden, ambushing beasts charged toward the dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns. In less than a breath's time, dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns were injured, and some were even severely injured. In comparison, they were simply too weak. Kill them, the divine heavenly sovereigns roared, and each of them unleashed their powerful strength to fight the seismic thunder-hidden beasts. At this moment, it was a very interesting scene. There were seismic thunder-hidden beasts fighting with people in front and behind Morongyu. However, Morongyu's side was extremely quiet, and no seismic thunder-hidden beasts came to attack. Perhaps the seismic thunder-hidden beasts were shocked when they saw Morongyu crush the seismic thunder-hidden beasts. Dying. Suddenly, Nie Yongwen roared. Divine light flowed around his body, and a terrifying aura burst out. He grabbed the seismic thunder-hidden beast with both hands, and then with a loud roar, he forcefully pulled with both hands. Puff! In an instant, the seismic thunder-hidden beast was torn into two by him. Then, Nie Yongwen's strength exploded, and he directly blasted the seismic thunder-hidden beast into powder. Nie Yongwen threw his head back and laughed. Although he was also covered in wounds, he felt very good. If it was before he met Morongyu, he would definitely not be a match for the seismic thunder-hidden beasts. Looking at the dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns behind him, it was obvious. Dozens of them were still attacked by dozens of seismic thunder-hidden beasts, and it was a mess. Along the way, Morongyu had been guiding Nie Yongwen in the cultivation of cultivation methods and combat skills. It could be said that the current Nie Yongwen was several times stronger than the Nie Yongwen before he met Morongyu. Of course, Morongyu's favoritism annoyed Situ Xian again. Along the way, Morongyu and Yangqing guided Gukai and Nie Yongwen in their battle skills and cultivation methods. However, they ignored her completely. Even if she took the initiative to ask, Morongyu and the other man ignored her. There was strength in numbers. This saying was true no matter where it was used. In the beginning, the dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns were caught off guard. However, they gradually gained control of the situation and turned the tables. Half a day after Morongyu healed Nie Yongwen's injuries, the group finally killed all of the hidden thunderclap beasts that had ambushed them. What a huge gap! After the battle ended, Situ Xian couldn't help but say, all of a sudden, the dozens of divine grade powerhouses could not help but blush. Almost all of the divine grade powerhouses were injured. Some of them were even severely injured. Although they managed to kill the hidden thunder beasts in the end, as Situ Xian had said, the gap was too big. Most importantly, the hidden thunder beasts were the most common ferocious beasts in Yuntai Valley. There were countless ferocious beasts that were stronger and more ferocious than them. They continued to go deeper. Whether it was intentional or not, those divine grade powerhouses kept walking behind Morongyu and the others. These guys are so shameless, Situ Xian said somewhat angrily. Morongyu smiled faintly. It's useless even if they're following behind us. Once we reach the depths of Yuntai Valley, they won't be able to keep up. Morongyu was disdainful. He was here to snatch Morongyu's blood crystal flower. If these people dare to snatch it, Morongyu would not mind sending them all back to their hometowns. There were huge white auras everywhere in the void. These might have been left behind by divine grade powerhouses or ferocious beasts. Therefore, Morongyu was not sure how he could catch up with them. He could only go deeper. Yuntai Valley was not very big anyway, so there would be a day when they would finish walking. Along the way, they encountered more ferocious beasts. For example, there were evil-repelling snowhead frog, heaven-killing light bug, floating frost god insect, and many other ferocious beasts that Morongyu had never seen before. The deeper they went, the stronger the ferocious beasts became. A few days ago, the floating frost god insect that Morongyu and the others had encountered had almost eaten Morongyu and the others. These insects were like ordinary ladybugs, and they were about the same size. However, their strength was terrifying. They were at the fifth heaven of divine grade. Of course, if there were only one or a few of them, Morongyu would not be afraid. However, these divine insects were ferocious beasts that lived in groups. When a group of 10 million divine insects charged over, Morongyu, who had reached the ninth heaven of divine grade, was so scared that he immediately ran as far as he could. In the process, Nie Yongwen was almost eaten by these godly worms. As for the Saint Heavenly Sovereigns following behind Murong Yu, it was a tragedy. When the divine insects swarmed over, those people reacted quickly and ran away. However, in the end, more than 10 divine grade experts were eaten by the divine insects until not even their bones were left. In addition to these ferocious beasts, Murong Yu and the others suddenly came across some dangerous places. One day, Murong Yu's group entered a valley that looked nothing out of the ordinary. Just as they were about to pass through the valley, an extremely terrifying poisonous fog suddenly appeared out of thin air. The poisonous fog really appeared out of thin air and shrouded the entire valley in an instant. Immediately, Gu Kai and Situ Xian, who were the weakest, were poisoned and fainted. Then, Nieyang Wan, a divine grade expert, was the next. Perhaps it was because Yang Qin was a rank 10 quasi-saint, but the poisonous fog did not knock her out in a short time. However, if she could not escape from here before she fainted, she would definitely be poisoned as well. In this place where ferocious beasts were everywhere, once she was poisoned, the result was obvious. Fortunately, in the face of the life force, the poisonous fog had no effect on Murong Yu at all. In the end, Murong Yu swept up Gu Kai and the others and flew out of the valley in a panic. In the end, with the recovery of the life force, Gu Kai and the others finally returned to normal. If it were someone else who had been poisoned by the poisonous fog without the life force, they would have been poisoned to death. Of course, Situ Xian, the miracle doctor, said that she was confident that she could cure the poisonous fog. However, it could only be done with some divine materials. Could one person hold on until they found Situ Xian? Did Situ Xian happen to have those divine materials? They were almost eaten by the divine insects and almost poisoned to death. In the following days, Murong Yu became more and more careful. It was worth mentioning that the divine grade experts in the restaurant still followed Murong Yu when he was in the valley. However, they were not as powerful as Murong Yu and did not have the ability to be immune to poison. In that valley, more than a dozen divine grade experts were taken down. In the end, these people decided not to follow Murong Yu. Murong Yu and the others seemed to be very unlucky. Wherever they went, tragedy would befall them. However, Murong Yu managed to avert the danger. However, they did not have the ability to defy the natural order like Murong Yu did. Although Murong Yu was already very careful, the dangers of Yuntai Valley continued to emerge. After passing through the poisonous fog in the valley, Murong Yu walked across a plain. The plain, which originally had a few mountains, turned into a bottomless swamp in the blink of an eye. If it was an ordinary swamp, it would not be a big deal. The key was that the swamp produced an extremely strong suction force that wanted to suck Murong Yu and the others down. Who knew what was under the swamp? Therefore, Murong Yu and the others wanted to leave the swamp. However, at that moment, many green-scaled silver-winged snakes appeared in the swamp. These green-scaled silver-winged snakes had green scales and silver wings. They were ferocious beasts that could fly with their wings. They were very powerful. The weakest among them was at the 6th heaven of the divine grade. As soon as they appeared, they rushed toward Murong Yu and the others. There were tens of thousands of them. Seeing these slimy, long, and disgusting snakes flying toward them, Murong Yu could not help but feel his hair stand on end. In a moment of desperation, he could only take out the yin-yang cauldron. The flame of primal chaos burst out and enveloped all of them. Then he used the Hichu Luoshu to take everyone in. Only then did they escape the danger. In fact, apart from these, Murong Yu and the others encountered more dangers. Moreover, each time was more dangerous than the last. In the end, Murong Yu was a little nervous. He could not help but wonder if Yu Wenba could really survive here. Yu Wenba did not seem to be very powerful. Moreover, there were so many dangers here. Along the way, although Murong Yu met many divine grade experts, he had never heard of Yu Wenba. Yu Wenba, you can't escape. Give me the blood crystal flower. Just as Murong Yu was doubting whether Yu Wenba could survive in this place, a furious roar came from afar. Yu Wenba. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of light. Then, he led the group in the direction of the voice. Huh, you probably thought that I came to Yuntai Valley to refine the blood crystal flower, right? You're all wrong. The blood crystal flower is no longer with me. I've hidden it somewhere in Yuntai Valley. You haven't given up, have you? You want to suppress me and read my memory? I've sealed the memory of where the blood crystal flower is hidden. Only I can open the seal. If there's any external force, the seal will explode. Then, my memory will be wiped clean. Hee. When that time comes, we won't be able to get the blood crystal flower. Just as Murong Yu was rushing over, Yu Wenba's voice came from afar. When Murong Yu arrived, he saw many saint heavenly sovereigns surrounding Yu Wenba. Chapter 1128. Yu Wenba was surrounded by many powerful divine heavenly sovereigns. He would not be able to escape even if he had wings. From afar, Yu Wenba looked like an ordinary middle-aged man. However, at this moment, his eyes were dim and his face was filled with exhaustion. The aura on his body was in a mess, as if he was seriously injured. Yu Wenba was only at the seventh heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level. Many of the people surrounding him were at the eighth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level. Therefore, it would be difficult for him to escape. However, Murong Yu did not notice any ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level among them. Is there really no ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level in the wasteland? Murong Yu wondered. However, he quickly rejected the idea. If there was no ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level in the wasteland, how could he have broken through to the ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign level? At that moment, the people surrounding Yu Wenba did not make a move. They were worried if Yu Wenba was telling the truth. If what he said was true, it would be impossible for them to take Yu Wenba down. Even if they controlled his soul, they would not be able to read his memory. After all, Yu Wenba had already made preparations and anticipated all kinds of situations that might occur. Master, if that's the case, should we make a move? Murong Yu frowned as he looked at Yu Wenba from the top of the mountain. Gukai asked. Murong Yu suddenly smiled and said, "There's no need to make a move. Of course, if Yu Wenba is lying, we'll have to make a move." If what he said is true, Murong Yu's eyes gleamed coldly as he looked at Yu Wenba. His eyes were like the stars in the nine heavens. He was memorizing Yu Wenba's aura in the void. If Yu Wenba had really buried the blood crystal flower somewhere in Yuntai Valley, the others might not know. However, Murong Yu might not know. As long as he followed Yu Wenba's aura in the void, he would know where Yu Wenba had been and where he might have buried the blood crystal flower. Stop being so mysterious. I don't believe you'll bury the blood crystal flower, an eighth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign said impatiently. He snorted coldly and took a step forward, closing in on Yu Wenba. Many other experts surrounding Yu Wenba also released powerful auras as they looked at Yu Wenba with murderous intent. The terrifying power lingered, already wrapping Yu Wenba's entire being within. Ha ha! Yu Wenba laughed out loud. His laughter was filled with desolation. The exhaustion on his face became even more intense. Murong Yu didn't go near them. He just frowned as he watched. He felt that all of this was too strange. Yu Wenba had been hunted down for 10,000 years, so why did it seem like he had given up on everything? Could it be that after being hunted for a year, he was exhausted and didn't want to continue? If that was the case, he would hand over the blood crystal flower. But he didn't do that. Why? Conspiracy. These two words suddenly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. Boom! At this moment, an earth-shattering sound came from Yu Wenba's side. An incomparably frightening shockwave quickly swept over Murong Yu. Caught off guard, Murong Yu was sent flying. Even Murong Yu, a ninth heaven divine grade super expert, was sent flying, let alone the others. Yang Xin and the others were severely injured in an instant. Nieyang was slightly better. His face was pale from the impact, and there were shocking wounds on his body. Gu Kai and Situ Xian, who were weaker, were in a tragic situation. Their bodies were almost shattered by the impact, and they were almost annihilated. On the other hand, Yang Xin was fine. This was because the moment Murong Yu was sent flying, he had already grabbed Yangqin in his hand. A powerful force burst out, protecting Yangqin. Otherwise, with Yangqin's fleshly body that was only at the lower tier, her entire body and soul would have been minced into nothingness by the force of the impact. This was only the first wave of impact. There were even more terrifying shockwaves coming from behind. Large areas of the void collapsed. Terrifying shockwaves quickly swept out in all directions with Yu Wenbo as the center. Murong Yu's face was gloomy. He reached out his two large hands, grabbed Gu Kai and the others, and threw them into the Hichu Luoshu world. In the end, he entered the Hichu Luoshu world without hesitation. Back to before, the powerhouses sneered as they launched their strongest attacks at Yu Wenbo. They wanted to suppress Yu Wenbo in one fell swoop. There were dozens of high-level divine grade powerhouses. With dozens of them attacking at the same time, Yu Wenbo, 7th Heaven Divine grade powerhouse, could not resist at all. Moreover, Yu Wenbo did not resist at all. Although everyone felt that something was off, their attacks did not slow down. On the contrary, they sped up. This was because they did not want anyone to take Yu Wenbo down. Boom! Their attacks were about to land on Yu Wenbo's body. However, at that moment, they clearly saw a smile on Yu Wenbo's face. His smile was filled with mockery, disdain, and a hint of relief. All of a sudden, they felt that something was amiss. However, before they could react, Yu Wenbo suddenly exploded. Self-detonation. A 7th Heaven Divine grade powerhouse had self-detonated. In an instant, the expressions of the divine grade powerhouses changed drastically. Then, they simultaneously unleashed their fastest speed to retreat. However, Yu Wenbo had lured them here. How could they escape so easily? The moment he self-detonated, a terrifying force had already erupted and blasted in all directions. The place where Yu Wenbo was originally had turned into a huge black hole. Even the spatial turbulence was bombarded to the point that it could not rush out. One could imagine how terrifying his self-detonation was. Bang! 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 The moment Yu Wenbo self-detonated, the few quasi-saint closest to him immediately suffered. Before they could retreat, they were completely annihilated. Not even their ashes were left. After these few people were annihilated, even more people were annihilated. Looking from afar, a huge black hole had appeared in the void. Moreover, it was expanding at a terrifying speed. One by one, the divine grade powerhouses were being swallowed up. These people who were being swallowed eventually turned into a cloud of blood mist and disappeared without a trace. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Murong Yu was healing Gu Kai and the others while controlling Hichu Luoshu to retreat quickly. The reason why Gu Kai and the others were only severely injured earlier was that they were still quite a distance away from Yu Wenbo. If they were any closer, they would have been killed immediately. At that moment, the huge black hole was still expanding. If Murong Yu had not left, Hichu Luoshu would have been swallowed up. Who knew what would happen after being swallowed up? Hichu Luoshu retreated all the way, but nothing happened. However, it was a tragedy for the divine grade powerhouses. In addition to them, there were many divine grade powerhouses who were rushing over. These people did not expect Yu Wenbo to have prepared such a big gift for them. After half a day, the power of Yu Wenbo's self-destruction finally disappeared. The void returned to normal. However, within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles, everything was blown up into dust. It should be known that the suppression of power in the wilderness was extremely terrifying. Under normal circumstances, even a 9th Heaven Divine grade powerhouse's attack range could not reach hundreds of millions of miles. It cannot even reach 100th or 1,000th of it. One could imagine how terrifying a person's self-destruction was. Of course, if a quasi-saint self-destructed in the divine world, the land that would be raised would be at least 1,000,000 times more than Yu Wenbo's. It was fine if the environment was destroyed, but the key was the powerhouses. Murong Yu estimated that at least a few hundred divine, heavenly sovereigns were killed. These divine grade powerhouses were at least at the 6th heaven of the divine grade. There were not many of them in the wilderness. This time, a large number of them were killed by Yu Wenbo. Even if Yu Wenba was dead, his name would still be known in the wilderness. Murong was about to walk out of the Hichu Luo Shu when he suddenly felt that the outside world was a little different. The sky was still the same as before, gray and dark. However, Murong felt that in the darkness, there was something like a poisonous fog. At that moment, a divine grade powerhouse approached the area that was raised to the ground. However, he soon let out a scream. Then, under the shocked gazes of others, his body was rapidly corroded. In a few breaths' time, he was completely annihilated. It's really a poisonous fog. Murong frowned slightly. There was no poisonous fog here before. Now there was suddenly a poisonous fog. Could it be because of Yu Wenba? Was Yu Wenba poisoned before? Did he finally self-destruct because he knew that he was beyond saving? Even if he died, he wanted to drag some people down with him? This thought suddenly appeared in Murong's mind. It's not impossible. Otherwise, he would definitely not self-destruct. Hichu's voice rang in Murong's mind. Self-detonation would result in a death that couldn't be any more dead, a complete annihilation. Even if they were killed, no one would be willing to self-destruct. Yu Wenba did this because he knew that he could not survive. In the end, he still had to trick those divine grade powerhouses. I wonder if he destroyed the blood crystal flower. Murong felt a little troubled. However, no one could answer this question. That guy naturally knew that he was going to die. Would he destroy or refine the blood crystal flower before he died? If that was the case, would it not be a waste of effort? However, Murong vaguely felt that things did not seem to be like that. Chapter 1129. Perhaps the blood crystal flower had been destroyed by Yu Wenba, or perhaps he had really buried it somewhere in Yuntai Valley. However, many people felt that the blood crystal flower must have been destroyed by Yu Wenba. Even if it had not been destroyed, Yu Wenba was already dead. Who knew where he had buried the blood crystal flower? All of a sudden, the divine heavenly sovereigns who knew that Yu Wenba had self-exploded began to retreat from Yuntai Valley. After all, Yuntai Valley was a dangerous place. The number of people who had died in Yuntai Valley due to the ferocious beasts and various environments was several times more than the number of people who had been killed by Yu Wenba's self-explosion. Now that it was impossible to find the blood crystal flower, they naturally would not continue to stay there. In a few days, most of the divine heavenly sovereigns who had entered Yuntai Valley had left. Of course, not all of them had left. There were still some people who had not given up and continued to search Yuntai Valley. Murong was one of the people who had not given up. Master, we're not leaving or searching now. What are we going to do? Murong and the others had been in Hichu Luo Shu for a long time, but Murong had not taken any action. Therefore, Gukai could not help but ask this one day. Murong only smiled faintly and did not say anything. Gukai and the others suddenly felt depressed because they did not know that Murong could see the aura left in the void by everyone. Therefore, they could not guess what Murong was going to do. After a few days, Murong felt that the other experts had left Yuntai Valley. Only then did he walk out of the Hichu Luo Shu world. Gukai and the others did not come out. They were too weak, and the environment in Yuntai Valley was too bad. There were too many ferocious beasts. They had only come out to slow Murong down. Why did Murong wait until the others had left Yuntai Valley? It was very simple. He did not want to meet other divine heavenly sovereigns when he was searching for Yu Wenba's aura, and he did not want other experts to know that he had the blood crystal flower. Otherwise, he would be hunted down all day like Yu Wenba. Although those people couldn't do anything to him, they would still cause him a lot of trouble. Spreading his angelic wings, Murong transformed into a black and white stream of light, disappearing from where he stood and flying forward. Murong started from a spot where Yu Wenba had self-destructed and followed his aura all the way down. The aura of the seventh sky of Saint Grade was very strong, and Murong ignored the aura of other experts. Therefore, Murong could only see Yu Wenba's huge aura. It stretched across the sky, zigzagging through various parts of Yuntai Valley. For several days, Murong had been tracking Yu Wenba's aura. During this process, Yuwenba's aura intersected many times. Once this happened, Muron could only chase after them one by one. He had walked through every single aura. Every time they arrived at a place where Yuwenba had stayed, Muron would start searching carefully. How did he know where Yuwenba had stopped? How could he have flown past them? It was very simple. If he had flown past them, his aura would have flown past them and would be the same size as the other auras. However, if he had stopped at a certain place, the aura there would be very strong. Although Yuntai Valley wasn't very big, it was definitely not small. Apart from some places, Yuwenba had been everywhere. For half a month, Muron had been tracking Yuwenba's aura, but he didn't find anything. This was because he had already appeared outside Yuntai Valley on this day. I didn't find anything. Could it be that the blood crystal flower was really destroyed or refined by Yuwenba? Muron frowned slightly. If Yuwenba had really refined the blood crystal flower, why would he say those things? Could it be used to disgust people? Muron thought to himself, but he didn't believe that Yuwenba had said those words just to disgust people. I must have overlooked something. Muron muttered to himself as he scanned Yuntai Valley in his mind. Suddenly, a divine light burst out from his eyes. Could it be there? As he spoke, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Invisibility. Muron's figure directly hid in the void. Originally, he didn't conceal himself. However, in the process of searching, ferocious beasts kept appearing and causing him a lot of trouble. Therefore, in the end, he concealed himself. Although he couldn't avoid those dangerous places, at least he could avoid those ferocious beasts. He avoided a lot of trouble. Muron's figure flashed, and he was extremely fast. Not long after, he appeared in the depths of Yuntai Valley, in front of a valley. Yuwenba had stopped here for a while, and this was the only place that Muron suspected. Standing at the entrance of the valley, Muron floated in the void and looked ahead with a serious expression. This valley was different from other valleys. Everything inside was too luxuriant. The same kind of tree outside the valley was at most a few hundred feet tall, but inside the valley, it was a few hundred feet tall. Moreover, each of them had a strong life aura. When things were abnormal, there must be a demon, although he didn't feel any danger. His subconscious told Muron that this valley must be extremely dangerous. He had seen Yuwenba's aura enter before, but it was only at the entrance of the valley. There was no aura in the depths of the valley. In fact, there was no aura in the valley. There wasn't even the aura of ferocious beasts. There were only two possibilities for this situation. One was that no one had ever entered this valley. However, this was unlikely because every valley in Yuntai Valley had the aura of human experts, except for this valley. Then, there was only one possibility. This valley had killed all those who had entered, and even their auras were not preserved. Should I go in? Although Muron was already the strongest existence in the wasteland, he couldn't guarantee that he could go in and come out alive. Just as Muron was hesitating, Hichu's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. There's the smell of blood crystals inside. The blood crystal flower might really be inside. A bitter smile immediately appeared on Muron's face. Hichu, don't trick me. Although I didn't get close to the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul, I still remember the smell of the blood crystal flower. There is indeed the aura of the blood crystal flower in this valley, but I can't guarantee that there is no blood crystal flower inside. Moreover, this valley is too dangerous. I don't know if the blood crystal flower can really become a saint. I don't want to die here. Muron's face darkened. Did he want to go in or not? After pondering for a while, Muron gritted his teeth and decided to go in. Immediately, he took out the He-2 and the Book of the Luo, which transformed into a suit of armor that protected him securely. Only his eyes were exposed. At the same time, he took out the Yin-Yang cauldron, which floated above his head. Streaks of flame of primal chaos fell down and drowned him. Hichu, once you feel that something is wrong, put me into the Hichu Luo Shu immediately. Muron instructed Hichu in his mind. Then, he took a step into the valley with the divine artifact, Soul Chaser. Rumble. In an instant, Murong Yu saw the scenery in front of him change. When he looked carefully, he seemed to have appeared in an unfamiliar space. However, he also seemed to be motionless in the same place. Waves of terrifying energy rippled over, and Murong Yu began to feel the ground under his feet sink. Just like the swamp he had encountered before, waves of terrifying suction force kept erupting, engulfing Murong Yu, trying to drag him into the depths of the swamp. At the same time, the sky above the nine heavens seemed to have split open. Streaks of meteors and meteorites, which contained sparks, exploded with a destructive aura and crashed down on Murong Yu, trying to crush Murong Yu to death. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past, and Murong Yu felt that his vision was a little blurry. His breathing was also a little irregular, and his blood and chi seemed to be about to solidify. Poison gas! Kill! 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 Waves of earth-shattering battle cries rang out. Murong Yu watched as the originally lush trees and plants in the valley suddenly transformed into ferocious beasts, demonic beasts, humans, and demons. They looked like ancient experts with sacred artifacts above their heads and divine artifacts in their hands. Murong Yu's killing intent soared to the heavens as they charged toward Murong Yu. What's going on? Murong Yu felt a little dizzy. Is this an illusion? This is an illusion, but it's also not an illusion. If you treat it as an illusion, you will be killed, because those attacks really did exist. This is a special existence that lies between illusion and reality. Hichu's voice rang out in Murong Yu's ears. Boom, boom, boom. Meteorites and meteors the size of sacred mountains constantly bombarded the cauldron. Although the flame of primal chaos burned away a lot of them, there were still some that directly bombarded the yin-yang cauldron. The yin-yang cauldron trembled violently under the bombardment, and the flame of primal chaos kept spitting out. As for Murong Yu, his blood and chi were surging from the impact. Shwa! A giant crossed billions of space-time with a single step and rushed in front of him. The giant slashed out with the power of a huge saber. Even the heavens were split in half. Before Murong Yu could even react, the saber had already chopped down on the armor that Hichu Luoshu had transformed into. The terrifying power instantly made Murong Yu feel as if his body was about to be chopped into pieces. His entire body was blasted away. A real attack. Only now did Murong Yu understand what Hichu meant. What did he mean by lying between illusion and reality? He was in an illusion, but the attacks were real. Murong Yu could be killed by these attacks. Of course, how could Murong Yu be killed so easily? With a roar, his figure shot up into the sky. Chapter 1130. The Soul Chaser's spear viciously slammed into a meteor crashing down like a mountain. A terrifying power erupted, and instantly, the huge meteorite was blasted into smithereens. At the same time, Murong Yu's other hand slammed out and smashed a primordial expert charging at him to pieces. It didn't seem like an illusion. Everything was so real. Murong Yu smashed the Archean Realm expert to pieces with a single palm strike. He could even smell the stench of blood in the air. Fresh blood splattered over, and Murong Yu even felt a trace of warmth in the blood. It was real blood. There was no time to think about what was going on. Murong Yu raised his strength to the limit and unleashed his invincible spear, firing spear after spear. Regardless of whether it was a meteor, a variety of wild beasts, or primordial experts charging at him, they were all killed. None of them were Murong Yu's match, and he killed them one after another. In the end, Murong Yu just stood in place and unleashed a barrage of attacks with his spear and fist. Half a day later, Murong Yu's expression was somewhat solemn, but more than that, he was depressed. He didn't know how many meteors, wild beasts, and primordial experts he'd killed over the past half a day. Hundreds of millions was considered a small number. However, the meteors and experts charging at him didn't decrease in the slightest. They didn't increase, nor did they decrease. When he saw this, Murong Yu felt incomparably depressed. But even more depressing was yet to come. Later, he discovered that the people he'd killed earlier had reappeared in the beginning. Whether it was the meteorites or the various experts, they were all different. There was no way they would be the same. But not long after, those people appeared again. They can't be killed. Murong-yu felt like vomiting blood. This situation was similar to when Murong-yu had just obtained the Heavenly Punishment Token and entered it. The life forms in the Heavenly Punishment Token were also unkillable. The stronger they were, the harder it was to kill them. Because they could all resurrect, they could only be truly killed after their number of resurrections was completely wiped out. Was this also the case for all of them? Who knew how many times he would have to kill them before he could kill them? Or even, no matter how he killed them, he wouldn't die. In addition to dealing with these meteorites and various experts, Murong-yu also had to deal with the poison gas that covered the sky and the swamp that was constantly swallowing him. His strength was greatly consumed. Fortunately, Murong-yu had the Tree of Life to replenish a large amount of energy at any time. If it were any other powerhouse at the peak of the 9th heaven of the Saint grade, they would have died from exhaustion. Moreover, Murong-yu felt that the poisonous gas was the same as the poisonous gas that tore apart the area after Yu Wenba's self-destruction, but it was 1,000 times stronger. Murong-yu was almost certain that Yu Wenba had entered this valley before, and it was very likely that the blood crystal flower was here. However, if Yu Wenba was able to leave this damned valley before his energy was exhausted, why couldn't he? Murong-yu pondered in his heart. He had already tried to retreat, but to no avail. He couldn't even move forward. The poisonous gas was still unable to break through the Inyang Cauldron and Hichu Luoshu's obstruction to attack Murong-yu. However, Murong-yu couldn't enter Hichu Luoshu, let alone leave this place. Are we going to be trapped here forever? Murong-yu's face was gloomy. Let's find the blood crystal flower first. Hichu suddenly shouted. At the same time, he transmitted the location of the blood crystal flower to Murong-yu. Kill! Murong-yu roared. He unleashed his strongest strength and charged forward. He moved forward in a straight line. The reason why he hadn't succeeded previously was that he had charged forward, but in the end, he had unknowingly returned to his original spot. This time, with the blood crystal flower as a reference, Murong-yu continued forward. Nothing could stop Murong-yu. Therefore, it didn't take long for him to reach the back of the valley. The blood crystal flower is here. Hichu's voice rang in Murong-yu's ears. However, Murong-yu didn't find anything. Presumably, the blood crystal flower was in the valley, but Murong-yu was now in between the illusory realm and reality, so he couldn't find it. After attacking for a while, Murong-yu still couldn't find the blood crystal flower and couldn't get out of the illusory realm. Immediately, he was furious. Why don't you just burn this valley with the flame of chaos? Murong-yu was really angry. Even if you use the flame of chaos, you might not be able to burn this illusory realm, Hichu said in a low voice. This was also the reason why Murong-yu hadn't used the flame of chaos. Moreover, the blood crystal flower was in this valley. If he burned this place down, wouldn't that mean that the blood crystal flower would be burned down as well? Then, wouldn't all his efforts over the past few days be in vain? This is inside Desolation's body. Do you still remember the scene in Desolation's heart? You were thrown into the blood lake. Murong-yu suddenly remembered that in the space under the blood lake, he was treated as one of Desolation's kind. Those blood fiends also treated him as one of their kind, and even as their master. This place should be related to Desolation. However, didn't he open the Inyang Cauldron? Why didn't this illusory realm let him go? Why didn't it treat him as one of its kind? Could it be because I didn't release my physical body? Murong-yu thought. Not only was there poisonous gas here, but there was also the terrifying swamp. Once he released his physical body, he would probably be destroyed. Who knew if his fleshly body could withstand those fleshly bodies? Even if his life force could resist them? But would there be any side effects? Maybe this is the only way. I can give it a try. Murong-yu thought. If I find something wrong, I'll wrap him up immediately, Hichu said. Murong-yu nodded. Then, the armor that Hichu Luoshu had transformed into disappeared. It turned into a particle and attached itself to Murong-yu's head. The yin-yang cauldron's primal chaos flame was also removed by Murong Yu. It only hovered above his head. At the same time, the life force in Murong Yu's body had wrapped around his bones and flesh. Once the poisonous gas invaded his body, the life force would kill it before it could take effect. Chi-Chi. The moment Murong Yu removed the Hichu Luo Shu, the poisonous gas enveloped Murong Yu and invaded his body. His skin was completely fine. However, after the poisonous gas entered Murong Yu's body, it began to wreak havoc. Even though his physical body was at the peak of the ninth heaven of the divine grade, it could not withstand the poisonous gas invasion and began to fester. Murong Yu finally understood why Yu Wenba had self-destructed. Yu Wenba's physical body was far inferior to his. If his physical body was rapidly festering, what more Yu Wenba? Yu Wenba had withstood the poisonous gas for so long. He must have used some special method to temporarily suppress the poisonous gas. That was why he had self-destructed without hesitation. Moreover, after the self-destruction, the poisonous gas filled the area within 100 million miles. Chaotic celestial record. Murong Yu immediately activated his mental cultivation method. At the same time, his life force quickly absorbed the chaotic energy. At this moment, Murong Yu saw that the poisonous gas seemed to be hesitating. The invasion seemed to have slowed down. There's hope. Murong Yu's face lit up. He immediately sat down with his legs crossed and completely let go of his physical body. He did not even have any life force in his body to repair the invaded physical body. The poisonous gas was still invading, but it was more hesitant now. Even the various experts and meteorites did not attack Murong Yu's body. Those experts seemed to be hesitating whether to attack Murong Yu or not. As for the meteorites, they constantly brushed past Murong Yu. The suction of the swamp on the ground was gradually weakening. Murong Yu was delighted and relaxed his mind. He even transformed a little bit of murderous aura. Although the desolation came from the chaos and treated Murong Yu, who was a chaotic celestial record, as one of its own. However, every desolation had a murderous aura. By revealing the murderous aura, it would be easier for the desolation to believe that it was one of its own kind. As expected, after Murong Yu transformed the murderous aura, the poisonous gas no longer attacked Murong Yu. Murong Yu even felt that the poisonous gas and other forces were getting close to him. Whoosh! The poisonous gas retreated from his body in an instant. At the same time, the scene in front of Murong Yu changed. The various experts, the huge meteorites in the sky, and the swamp on the ground all disappeared in an instant. Success. Murong Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Everything had been too lucky. First, it was in the depths of the Blood Lake, and now it was the same. He had already deceived the desolation twice. However, if the desolation really came back to life, would it be furious because of Murong Yu's deceit? If he wasn't a chaotic celestial record, he would have died in the Blood Lake. Even if he didn't die, who knew how long it would take him to escape from the illusion just now? Who cares? I'll think about it after I get through this. Murong Yu snickered inwardly and stood up. Blood crystal flower. A small flower bloomed, sparkling and translucent, with the mournful beauty of blood. It seemed to have been thrown here by someone at Murong Yu's feet. If it wasn't a blood crystal flower, then what was it? Murong Yu was shocked, but he didn't slow down. A suction force acted on the blood crystal flower, and it was immediately sucked into the Hichu Luo Shu world. At the same time, Murong Yu moved and disappeared from the valley in a flash. Although he had deceived the desolation again, who knew if the desolation would realize that he wasn't the same kind? Now that he had the blood crystal flower, why would Murong Yu stay here if he didn't leave? Therefore, when Murong Yu rushed out of the valley, he entered the Hichu Luo Shu world in a flash. Then he activated the teleportation and appeared in Chiu State City in the next moment. Chapter 1131. The blood crystal flower was like a wildflower on the side of the road. It was nothing special, but its entire body was crystal clear, like transparent blood. It looked very beautiful. At this moment, the blood crystal flower was lying quietly in Murong Yu's palm. The aura of a sage. It was extremely pure energy, but there was no trace of killing intent. Hichu, can you become a sage after refining this thing? Murong Yu handed the blood crystal flower to Hichu, who had transformed into a young man. He too immediately took it, and, after carefully sizing it up, he shook his head. It can't. Murong Yu was a little disappointed. These things of legends could not be trusted. If the blood crystal flower could not be refined, then the undying blood soul could not be refined either. If he could not become a sage, Murong Yu would not even bother to snatch the undying blood soul. After all, it would be a waste of time and energy. In the end, it would be a waste of effort. No, it should be possible to become a sage. You can feel the sage power in the blood crystal flower. It is very likely to contain Desolation's origin energy, Hichu explained. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Desolation's origin energy? He did not understand. What was origin energy? Was it like the origin energy of the immortal world or the cultivation world? It is similar to the origin energy of the world. However, the origin energy of life is like your blood essence. It is the most basic and pure energy. At Murong Yu's level, he had a lot of blood. Moreover, his ability to produce blood was very strong. Under normal circumstances, he would not die from excessive blood loss. This blood also contained extremely terrifying energy. With Murong Yu's strength, his blood could even kill gods and immortals below the Heavenly Emperor level. It was the same for others. The higher the level, the stronger the energy contained in the level. However, the energy contained in this ordinary blood was far inferior to the energy contained in the blood crystal flower. Murong Yu's blood could form an ocean in the mortal world. However, he only had a few drops of blood crystal flower. One could imagine how terrifying the energy contained in the blood crystal flower was. By the same logic, the origin energy was equivalent to the blood crystal flower. The Eastern Barren territory was extremely powerful, and all of them were at least saints. If the blood crystal flower truly contained Desolation's origin energy, then there was simply no one in the god realm who could refine it. He might even explode before he could refine it. Before Murong Yu could question him, Hichu continued, "Of course, it's impossible for the blood crystal flower to contain true origin energy. If that was the case, the blood crystal flower wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. Perhaps it was just a trace of the power of the origin. However, even if it's only a sliver of the origin energy, as long as you refine it, you might become a saint." Murong Yu was overjoyed. Since the blood crystal flower had the origin power of the Eastern Barren territory, what about the undying blood soul? Most likely, there was even more origin energy, right? Moreover, the undying blood soul should be a remnant soul of the Eastern Wilderness soul. The indestructible blood soul probably contains more origin energy. Moreover, the immortal blood soul was a remnant soul for the Eastern Barren territory. If he could refine the remnant soul, he might be able to fuse with the memory fragments of the Eastern Wasteland. Then, he would know the Eastern Barren territory's weakness and be able to stop the Eastern Barren territory's resurrection. Murong Yu's eyes shone brightly. After hearing what Hichu had said, he was even more determined to obtain the undying blood soul. Moreover, Murong Yu finally understood why no experts at the peak of the ninth heaven of the divine grade had come to obtain the blood crystal flower. It was not because there were no such experts in the wasteland, but because their target was the undying blood soul. With a thought, Murong Yu came out of Hichu Luoshu and stood on the street of Chiozhou City. At the same time, Yang Qin and the others appeared. "Murong Yu, did you get the blood crystal flower?" Sidu Xian asked Murong Yu as soon as she appeared. Murong Yu glared at her. "What do you think?" Situ Xian was upset. She knew that Yu Wenbao had exposed himself. Where was the blood crystal flower? "Are you going to obtain the undying blood soul now?" "I guess all the experts in the wasteland have gone to obtain the undying blood soul," Situ Xian said with a frown. Murong Yu frowned slightly. There was no news about the undying blood soul at all. Moreover, if that was the case, the super experts of the Green Sun tribe must not be in the tribe anymore. In that case, it would be useless even if he went to the Green Sun tribe. How about we go to the restaurant to find out? Gu Kai said weakly. Idiot, there are probably no more divine grade experts in Chiozhou City now. How can other people's information be reliable? Other people don't even know about the undying blood soul. Situ Xian glared at Gu Kai. Even if some information was known to all the experts in the world, it was normal for those who had not reached that level to know nothing about it. For example, Murong Yu kept asking Hichu about the holy world, but Hichu always stopped him with one sentence. It's not good for you to know now. Let's go to the Green Sun tribe first. Situ Xian, lead the way. Situ Xian snorted and led Murong Yu and the others to the teleportation formation of Chiozhou City. Blood crystals. Situ Xian looked at Murong Yu and held out her hand. There are not many teleportation formations in the wasteland, and one had to pay a certain amount of blood crystals to use them. Therefore, only certain people from the big tribes were qualified to use the teleportation formation. You're a famous miracle doctor. Don't tell me you don't even have a few blood crystals? Murong Yu looked at Situ Xian with disdain. Of course I have enough blood crystals. But the three of them are your people, plus you. Humph, you stingy guy. You won't even teach me combat skills and cultivation methods. I won't help you with the blood crystals. Murong Yu's face darkened. This woman was too calculative. In the end, Yang Qin could not stand it anymore. She took out 100 blood crystals and gave them to those who activated the teleportation formation. The cheapest one to use the teleportation formation cost 20 low-grade blood crystals per person. And the further the distance, the more blood crystals it would cost. Before this, Xiang Village and Gaoyang Village did not even have a few hundred low-grade blood crystals combined. One could imagine how expensive the teleportation formation was. After several teleportations, Murong Yu and the others finally arrived at the Green Sun tribe. Murong Yu and the others finally knew what a top tribe was. How was this a tribe? It was simply a giant country. It had a huge population and countless experts. Its territory was extremely vast. It was at least the size of a few small continents in the God Realm. Moreover, Murong Yu found that the Green Sun tribe was different from a sect. It was clearly hierarchical, just like a super country. The center of power of the Green Sun tribe was a super city called Green Sun City. Strange. Situ Xian frowned slightly as soon as she stepped into Green Sun City. Murong Yu looked at Situ Xian. Usually, many people would come out to greet me when I come back. But today, there is no one. Situ Xian frowned slightly. What she did not tell Murong Yu was that most of those who came out to greet her were her escorts and some followers. Did something happen in the tribe? Situ Xian suddenly became anxious. She sped up and rushed straight into the depths of Green Sun City. Murong Yu and the others immediately followed her. Green Sun City was heavily guarded. If they were not with Situ Xian, Murong Yu and the others might be in trouble. Although Murong Yu was not afraid of the Green Sun tribe, he did not want to get into trouble for no reason. Dr. Situ. Along the way, many people respectfully saluted or greeted Situ Xian when they saw her. It could be seen that this woman had a high prestige in the Green Sun tribe. However, Murong Yu noticed that every single one of them had strange expressions on their faces. Every single one of them had the same expression. Take these friends of mine to my place first. After entering the depths of Green Sun City, Situ Xian ordered several people. Then she left Murong Yu and the others and rushed forward. This woman is in such a hurry. I don't know why she is in such a hurry. Even if something really happened in the Green Sun tribe, she can't help much. Murong Yu's face was dark as he followed the people of the Green Sun tribe. Brother, are we here at a bad time? Did something happen in the Green Sun tribe? At Murong Yu's signal, Gu Kai went up and chatted with the man who led the way. It's not that something happened in the Green Sun tribe, but something big happened in the Wasteland world. Perhaps because they saw that Murong Yu and the others were not ordinary, or because of Situ Xian's face, those guys immediately began to chat. Oh, what happened in the Wasteland world? We have been in a hurry, so we don't know. Gu Kai was stunned and continued to ask without Murong Yu's signal. Do you know the immortal blood soul? Was the immortal blood soul taken away? Or was it taken away? Gukai was slightly surprised, and Murong Yu frowned slightly. No, the expert who took the immortal blood soul was very powerful. Even top experts couldn't take the immortal blood soul away from him. But not long ago, they discovered a passage that led to the outside world of the God realm during a chase. A passage? One of the 8 passages? Murong Yu's body shook violently. Gukai and the others were delighted. That means we can leave the wasteland world and enter the God realm through that passage. Gukai suddenly became excited. This was indeed a big deal, because it was impossible to ascend to the holy world in the wasteland world, but it was possible in the God realm. Once the news of the passage's discovery spread out, Murong Yu believed that all the people in the wasteland world would want to leave the wasteland world and go to the God realm through that passage. But how could they know that the God realm and the wasteland world were equally cruel? Yes, I heard that many people rushed over. It's a pity that the Green Sun tribe doesn't allow ordinary tribesmen to leave, or we would have left the tribe long ago. The guy shook his head and said helplessly, so that was it. Those people mentioned by Sidhu, Xian, must have left the Green Sun tribe long ago. And the reason why these people looked different was that they couldn't leave the Green Sun tribe. Who didn't want to be a sage? Chapter 1132. Whether it was in the desolate world or the divine world, everyone wanted to become a sage. In the desolate world, it was almost impossible to become a sage. Only by refining the legendary blood crystal flower and undying blood soul could one become a sage. However, it was only a possibility. Whether one could really become a sage was unknown. Moreover, the blood crystal flower and undying blood soul were extremely rare. No one knew how many years they would appear. However, the people in the desolate world knew that it was extremely easy to become a sage in the divine world. Moreover, the cultivation conditions there were many times better than in the desolate world. The people in the desolate world all wanted to enter the divine world to become stronger and become a sage. However, how difficult was it to enter the divine world from the desolate world? Moreover, there were only 8 passageways. However, where were the 8 passageways? However, no one knew about it. Therefore, the people in the desolate world had never left the desolate world. If it were not for the people from the divine world entering the desolate world, they would not even know that the people in the divine world looked like them. Now that one of the 8 passageways had appeared, the people in the desolate world were in an uproar. Not to mention the natives of the desolate world. Even the people from the divine world felt the same. Although the desolate world was filled with blood crystals, the people from the divine world had their power suppressed. Many people had even become slaves, which naturally made them unhappy. No one was willing to become a slave. Therefore, they were constantly thinking about returning to the divine world. Godly Dawn Mountain, one of the most dangerous places in the desolate world. It was terrifying because it was above the Yuntai Valley. Not long ago, Yu Winbaw, who had obtained the blood crystal flower, was forced to enter the Yuntai Valley. He wanted to get rid of the people, refine the blood crystal flower, and become a sage. However, Yu Winbaw failed in the end. Similar to Yu Winbaw, the super expert who had obtained the undying blood soul finally ran out of patience after being chased for tens of thousands of years and entered the godly Dawn Mountain. According to the legends, the person who had obtained the undying blood soul was not this expert. This person's strength had reached the 9th heaven of the divine level. He had obtained the undying blood soul after killing the expert who had obtained it in the depths of the blood crystal mine. Therefore, he had been fined for tens of thousands of years despite being chased by a group of top experts. However, he had no other choice but to bring the blood soul into the godly Dawn Mountain. Naturally, the experts chasing after him would not let him go. After a series of battles, none of them were able to obtain the undying blood soul. But because of the war, the passage to the God realm was accidentally opened. However, due to various reasons, they were unable to enter the passage. When Murong Yu's group arrived at the godly Husk Mountain, they saw an endless number of people. Calling it a sea of people was an understatement. The Shinwu Mountain was not very big, but it was still hundreds of millions of miles wide. But now, the entire mountain was drowned in a sea of people. The danger zone, which was even more terrifying than the Grand Cloud Mountain, was no longer terrifying, because the entire Shinwu Mountain had been razed to the ground. Those danger zones, and all kinds of ferocious beasts had long been wiped out by the joint forces of everyone. They were no longer useful. There was strength in numbers. The passage is in the deepest part of Shinwu Mountain. How are we going to get there? Outside the godly Hush Mountain, Situ Xian frowned slightly. When they returned to the Green Sun tribe, they learned about it and immediately rushed over. It won't take long to fly over. Gukai scratched his head and smiled foolishly. Situ Xian rolled her eyes. If it's really possible to fly over, why are there so many people standing outside instead of flying in? Is it forbidden to fly? Gukai said with some disbelief. At the same time, his body swayed and was about to soar into the air. Plop! After flying a few feet, Gukai felt as if he had suddenly lost the ability to fly. He was unable to fly. Moreover, the moment he lost the ability to fly, a huge force fell from the sky and slammed into him like a sacred mountain. Gukai was suddenly bombarded and fell to the ground, smashing a deep hole in the ground. Fortunately, the force did not contain much killing intent. Otherwise, Gukai would not have simply smashed a deep hole in the ground. I'm really forbidden to fly. Gukai smiled embarrassedly with an embarrassed look on his face. Countless people looked over at Gukai, each and every one of them looking at him like he was an idiot. This made Gukai's old face turn red with embarrassment. These bastards, they knew I would be like this, but they just watched me embarrass myself without telling me. What a bunch of bastards. Gukai glared fiercely at those who looked over, his face full of displeasure. How could there be such a large-scale, forbidden ability? Was it set up by those experts at the peak of the divine grade? Yang Qin's face was full of surprise. Morongyu shook his head and smiled. If we were in the realm of the gods, I'm afraid you alone would have the ability to do so. However, it was easily broken. But in the wasteland, they don't have the ability to set up such a large-scale forbidden ability. I think it's because of that passage. Forbidden ability? No wonder even those top divine grade experts can't enter that passage. Is it because of this? Situ Xian said gloomily. The passion in her eyes was extinguished as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over her head. Maybe. Morongyu did not comment, but he was a little excited. This was because he felt the aura of the realm of the gods after entering the godly Husk Mountain. Although it was very faint, it also meant that the passage really led to the realm of the gods. If it did not lead to the realm of the gods, how could they feel the aura of the realm of the gods? Let's go in and take a look. Morongyu was a little impatient. How do we go in? Are we going to fight our way in? If that's the case, you'll be killed by the angry crowd, even if you're at the peak of the divine grade. Situ Xian said to Morongyu in annoyance. I have a plan. Are you going or not? Why would I come here if not? Situ Xian glared at Morongyu, but she did not give up this opportunity. She knew that Morongyu was full of tricks. At such a close distance, Morongyu knew what Situ Xian was thinking. He immediately glared at Situ Xian. Then, a flood-like power erupted from his body and instantly engulfed Situ Xian and the others. The next moment, the angelic wings appeared on his back. What's going on? Is he going to fly up? Situ Xian and the others were not the only ones who were puzzled by this scene. Even the others were puzzled. Even birds can't fly here. Does he think he can fly freely? Someone sneered. Whoosh. However, before this person finished speaking, Morongyu had already soared into the sky. This can't be real, right? Seeing this scene, everyone was instantly stunned. This was especially true for the person who'd looked down on Morongyu earlier. His jaw nearly dropped to the ground as he said, I clearly saw that birds can't fly here. Could it be that one can fly by condensing wings? Legend has it that the 8th passage is above the sky. If one can fly, one can enter that passage. Some people pondered, but some had already learned from Morongyu and began to condense wings with their power, wanting to fly freely above the sky. It's actually possible to fly. Situ Xian felt a little dizzy, but more than that, she was pleasantly surprised. What did it mean that Murong-yu could fly? It meant that they could enter the passage, leave the desolate world, and reach the divine realm. After Murong-yu rose into the sky, he did not immediately fly. Like Gukai, after he rose into the sky, he suddenly seemed to have lost the power to fly. Of course, he was now relying entirely on the angelic wings to fly, just like a bird. It had nothing to do with the ability to fly. However, there was a strong force constantly descending from the sky, drowning him and suppressing him from the void. What's more, the power was constantly squeezing the angelic wings, trying to crush them. Murong-yu sneered in his heart. How could the angelic wings be crushed so easily? It was transformed from the army formula of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words, the most mysterious technique in the world. Therefore, although Murong-yu felt extremely strong pressure, he was fine. Bang! 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 However, Murong-yu was fine, but it did not mean that the others were fine. When everyone on the ground saw Murong-yu floating in the sky, they didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. One by one, they used their power to condense wings and rose into the sky. However, they were not Murong-yu. Therefore, when they rose into the sky, the wings they condensed were directly crushed. In the end, they all fell flat on their faces. Ha! Seeing this, Murong-yu laughed loudly. At the same time, he flapped his angelic wings and turned into a stream of light, disappearing on the spot and rushing into the depths of the godly Dawn Mountain. Who is that person? He can fly in the sky. If only I could fly, I could rush into the passage. Murong-yu shocked everyone as he passed by. Everyone on the ground was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. There were also many people who tried to condense wings like Murong-yu, but in the end, they all ended in tragedy. Ha ha! It feels so good to be envied by everyone. Feeling those envious and jealous eyes, Gukai-sen felt so good that he laughed out loud. The other 3 were not like Gukai. Yangqin and Nye-Yang-1 were powerful. They were the top experts in the God realm and the desolate world respectively. They had experienced this kind of gaze many times. Situ Xian was a famous miracle doctor. She had seen this kind of gaze many times and was used to it, not to mention Murong-yu. Chapter 1133. Murong-yu's speed was extremely fast. It did not take long for them to cross the endless space-time and appear in the depths of the godly Husk Mountain. Is that the passageway? Situ Xian said excitedly as she pointed at a black hole in the sky. Murong-yu stopped and looked at the black hole. The black hole was not very big. It was about 100,000 miles in radius. There was a black mist around the black hole. It was so deep that one could not see the bottom of it. It was like a prehistoric giant beast opening its bloody mouth. It was a little creepy. Holy Master, the aura of the realm of gods is very strong. This should be the passageway. Yangqin's excited voice rang in Murong-yu's ears as he was looking at the black hole, which was the passageway. Murong-yu nodded. If Murong-yu was still uncertain before, he was now 100% sure that the passageway led to the realm of gods. Holy Master, are we going to enter the passageway now? Yangqin asked excitedly. In the desolate world, she, a rank 10 quasi-saint, was reduced to an ant. This made her very unhappy. She did not want to continue staying here. Murong-yu shook his head. Even if the passageway was right in front of him, he would not leave just like that. After all, he had not completed his mission to enter the desolate world. The immortal blood soul and the heart of the eastern wilderness to prevent the eastern wilderness from reviving. Yangqin fell silent. Since Murong-yu did not leave immediately, he must have his reasons. Therefore, she did not continue asking. Master, are we leaving now? Gukai asked excitedly. He had long wanted to enter the realm of gods. I have something to do. I won't return to the realm of gods for the time being, Murong-yu said indifferently. Then, in a flash, he landed on the ground. Swoosh! 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 As soon as Murong-yu landed on the ground, several figures flickered as they rushed over from different directions and surrounded them. Morong Yu frowned slightly. He was a little unhappy. However, he did not flare up. Instead, he looked at the experts who surrounded them expressionlessly. All of them were peak Ninth Heaven Saint grade experts. Friend, you actually know how to fly? Why don't you share it with everyone? A middle-aged man at the peak of the divine grade walked over slowly and looked at Morong Yu with a burning gaze. Of course, he was not interested in Morong Yu, but in the angel wings. At the same time, everyone else's eyes were filled with passion. They had been in the depths of the Shinmu Mountain for a long time, but all they could do was stare blankly at the passage in the sky. They couldn't fly up at all. Originally, they had already decided the passage to the God Realm was right in front of them, but they couldn't enter. What else could be more despairing than this? However, at this moment, Morong Yu appeared. He could fly. If they could also fly, they could enter the passage and enter the God Realm. Therefore, the moment Morong Yu landed, the few peak experts immediately surrounded him without any prior agreement. He was trying to force Morong Yu to hand over his angelic wings. Shameless. Before Morong Yu could say anything, Gu Kai immediately cursed. Your peak divine grade experts. Can't you share your cultivation techniques? Why don't you take out your wives and let us share them? Gu Kai was really angry, and he cursed at the middle-aged man. He cursed so much that the peak divine grade expert's face turned green with killing intent. How dare an ant of the supreme divine grade scold him? Was he not courting death? He snorted with killing intent. His body swayed, and he took a step forward, appearing in front of Gu Kai again. The giant hand suddenly reached out and grabbed at Gu Kai. Gu Kai was taken aback. Although he had shown off for a moment, it was only because he was sure that the other party wouldn't be angry and attack a little ant like him. However, he underestimated the other party's shamelessness. In shock, Gu Kai could only retreat until he was in front of Morong Yu. A cold, killing intent flashed in the depths of Morong Yu's eyes. Just as Gu Kai retreated, he took a step forward. You're bullying the weak. How shameless. You deserve to die. As he spoke, he had already punched out, and his fist collided with the other party in mid-air. Bang! A huge muffled sound was heard, and a terrifying impact was formed in an instant. However, Morong Yu's power erupted, and he struck out a force to envelop Gu Kai and the others. Meanwhile, his original body took a few steps forward, charging forward step by step. Invincible divine fist. He threw out punch after punch, landing directly on the body of the divine grade expert. Puffed. In an instant, Morong Yu threw out tens of thousands of punches, and the middle-aged man was forced to retreat. Facing Morong Yu's stormy attacks, the middle-aged man was furious. He did not have the strength to fight back at all, and he was suppressed by Morong Yu. After tens of thousands of punches, the man finally could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. However, the physical body of a ninth heaven divine grade expert was extremely terrifying. Even Morong Yu would not be able to kill him that easily. However, Morong Yu had plenty of ways to kill this idiot. What a terrifying attack. Seeing Morong Yu's storm-like attacks, the surrounding people immediately cried out in alarm. Each and every one of their faces were filled with shock. This was because they knew that if they were the ones being attacked, they would definitely not be able to block the attacks. Whoosh! However, while they were still in shock, they saw Morong Yu take out a magic treasure that looked like a picture scroll. The middle-aged man did not even have time to react before his entire body was enveloped by the picture scroll. In the next moment, Morong Yu and the middle-aged man disappeared from where they were. However, they soon reappeared in their sights. Where is this? After entering Hichu Luoshu, the middle-aged man immediately became alert and looked left and right. The place where I'll kill you. Morong Yu roared and charged toward him. At the same time, he had activated time acceleration the moment he entered Hichu Luoshu. The middle-aged man sneered. You want to kill me? Boom. Originally, the middle-aged man wanted to mock Morong Yu for overestimating himself. However, Morong Yu had already teleported in front of him. At the same time, he ruthlessly punched him in the chest. A power that was countless times stronger than before suddenly erupted, immediately forcing the middle-aged man to swallow the words he was about to say back into his stomach. At the same time, the middle-aged man was sent flying. Crack! Crack! His body, which was at the pinnacle of the ninth firmament saint grade, actually cracked under Murong Yu's punch. In an instant, the middle-aged man was severely injured. Impossible! How can you be so powerful? Although Murong Yu was slightly stronger than him at Shinwu Mountain, it was impossible for him to injure him with one punch. However, Murong Yu's strength had increased by more than 100 times. Murong Yu did not use Hichu Luoshu to suppress the middle-aged man, nor did he increase his strength. He was just using his own strength. However, in the Hichu Luoshu world, his realm was not suppressed. Peak Archean God. How big was the gap between an Archean God and a heavenly being? It was a gap of 4 realms. Their physical realm was the same, but their cultivation realm was 4 realms apart. How could the middle-aged man be a match for Murong Yu? Of course, if the gap between their physical bodies was too big, even Quasi-Saint might not be able to injure the middle-aged man with one punch. Murong Yu sneered. He took a step forward and came to the middle-aged man's side again. Then he punched out again. The middle-aged man was horrified. He struck out with his hand in an attempt to block Murong Yu's attack. However, Murong Yu's speed was extremely terrifying. Before he could react, Murong Yu's attack had already landed on his body. Boom! Crack! His body cracked again, spreading out in all directions like a spiderweb. Each and every one of them was a ghastly sight. Their bones could be seen, and their hair stood on end. The middle-aged man was enraged and roared at Lin Lian. However, he was reduced to Murong Yu's punching bag. He was easily suppressed by Murong Yu without any resistance. In a short period of time, all the bones in his body were shattered, and his entire body was like a pile of mud. With his strength, he could restore his physical body, but it would take a very long time. Most importantly, his power had been sealed by Murong Yu. If this seal was not removed, he would remain in this state for the rest of his life until his lifespan ran out and he died. B** starred. Kill me if you dare. The middle-aged man roared angrily and cursed at Murong Yu. Murong Yu frowned slightly. He struck out with his power and sealed the man's ability to speak. Then, he grabbed the man and walked out of the Hichu Luoshu in a flash. Plop! After coming out, Murong Yu immediately threw the deluded middle-aged man's body onto the ground. What's going on? Seeing Murong Yu and the middle-aged man disappear and then reappear in an instant, the crowd did not know what was going on. However, when they saw the expert at the peak of the divine grade turn into a pile of mud in an instant, they were all stunned. What did it mean to turn an expert at the peak of the divine grade into a pile of mud in an instant? Could this guy be a legendary saint? The surrounding people instantly looked at Murong Yu in bewilderment. As for those who had surrounded Murong Yu, their faces instantly turned pale as they retreated one by one. They were all shocked by Murong Yu's strength. If Murong Yu could turn the middle-aged man into a pile of mud, he could also turn them into a pile of mud in an instant. For a moment, the experts at the peak of the divine grade felt a chill run down their spines. They were afraid that Murong Yu would come after them. However, what they feared would happen. Soon, they saw Murong Yu looking at them with a smile on his face. For a moment, they stopped retreating and forced a smile that was uglier than crying as they looked at Murong Yu with stiff expressions. Chapter 1134. Do all of you want a technique too? Murong Yu looked at the divine grade powerhouse with a faint smile. Everyone fell silent. Was there a need to ask? They must have surrounded Murong Yu because they wanted to get Murong Yu's technique. However, did Murong Yu deliberately ask them this to embarrass them or to give him a way out? How can we be like him? I just saw that you could fly in the sky, so I couldn't hold back my curiosity and wanted to ask for your guidance. After a moment of silence, one of the powerhouses finally spoke up. The others immediately reacted and chimed in. Yes, we just wanted to ask for your guidance. If you can't do it, we'll leave first. As they spoke, they turned around and were about to leave. As they spoke, Murong Yu continued to smile as though he believed them. However, just as they were about to leave, his face suddenly turned cold. Do all of you think I'm an idiot? Hearing Murong Yu's cold words, the powerhouse's hearts sank, and they stopped in their tracks. If you don't want to end up like him, use your treasures to exchange for it. Don't try to fool me. I already have his storage ring, so I know that his treasures are worth a lot. You don't have to give me all of them, just 80% will do. Everyone's faces turned pale, and they regretted it. At the same time, they were cursing in their hearts. They were not cursing Murong Yu, but the powerhouse at the peak of the divine grade who was beaten into a pulp by Murong Yu. That guy had never been a good person. He had never stopped doing things like robbing people by force. Therefore, among the few of them, the middle-aged man had the most treasures. 80% of his belongings might be all of their belongings. This is all I have. One of the powerhouses at the peak of the divine grade threw the storage ring to Murong Yu with a black face and strode away. However, the muscles on his face were constantly twitching, making him look slightly sinister. With this person taking the lead, the other experts also handed over their storage rings to Murong Yu. At the same time, they were cursing the first person in their hearts. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party had handed over all their assets, would they have to hand over all their assets as well? However, if they didn't hand over all of them, once Murong Yu felt that they didn't have enough, they might be beaten to a pulp. Murong Yu checked every storage ring and nodded slightly after confirming that there were no mistakes. At that moment, the divine heavenly sovereigns had already disappeared into the crowd. However, no matter where they went, the people there would pay attention to them. Of course, the one who received the most attention was Murong Yu. At this moment, everyone was looking at Murong Yu in shock. They were all deeply shocked by Murong Yu. He had used his absolute strength to suppress those experts and easily obtain the treasures that those experts had collected over their lifetimes. Who on earth is this man? Why is he so powerful? Why do those experts at the peak of the divine, heavenly sovereign not even dare to resist? Everyone was guessing Murong Yu's identity and background. Good boy, you really know how to take advantage of the situation to make money. Situ Xian came over and looked at Murong Yu with disdain. Are you despising me or envying me? Murong Yu smiled faintly. Well, I envy you, Situ Xian immediately said enviously. However, no matter how envious she would not have a share of these storage rings. They were directly taken by Murong Yu into the Hichu Luoshu world. Then he looked around and was about to ask Situ Xian if those people were experts of the Green Sun tribe, when a group of people slowly came over. An old man came over and glanced at Murong Yu before looking at Situ Xian. Situ Xian, don't you want to introduce your friend to us? Although he looked a little old, his chi and blood were surging. He was an expert at the peak of the ninth heaven of the divine, heavenly, sovereign realm. First Elder D. Situ Xian immediately saluted him and greeted some other people at the same time. These people were all experts of the divine, heavenly, sovereign realm. There were more than a dozen of them. Murong Yu guessed that these divine, heavenly sovereigns were not the full strength of the Green Sun tribe. After all, the Red Cloud tribe had 4 divine, heavenly sovereigns, let alone the more powerful Green Sun tribe. Situ Xian immediately introduced Murong Yu and the others to each other. Even though the super experts of the Green Sun tribe all had their own arrogance, they all restrained their arrogance in the face of Murong Yu. Murong Yu's appearance was so shocking that even an idiot would not dare to offend Murong Yu. However, all of them were looking at Murong Yu with blazing gazes. Since Murong Yu could enter the passage, who would not look at him with blazing eyes? First Elder D, do you know who got the immortal blood soul? Murong Yu asked directly after they exchanged pleasantries. However, as soon as Murong Yu said this, the faces of the experts of the Green Sun tribe darkened. What happened? Murong Yu was stunned. The immortal blood soul is still with Xie Qingping. No one got it, Dijingya said unhappily. Then, Murong Yu knew why their faces darkened. They had been chasing Xie Qingping for tens of thousands of years. They were about to intercept him in the godly Dawn Mountain and snatch the immortal blood soul. However, during the battle, The passage was opened, and Xie Changping took advantage of this opportunity to escape. If one got the immortal blood soul, he could become a divine heavenly sovereign. If he went to the divine world outside, he could also become a divine heavenly sovereign. For a moment, everyone was hesitant. Most of them stayed on the godly Dawn Mountain, so no one continued to chase Xie Changping. However, they tragically found that they could not go up the passage. If they had known this, they would have killed Xie Changping. If they got the immortal blood soul and left the desolate world, wouldn't they have a higher chance of becoming a divine, heavenly sovereign? Therefore, when Muronyu asked about the immortal blood soul, their faces darkened. Not only the people of the Green Sun tribe, but many other experts also had the same expression. Muronyu, are you going back to the divine world? Do you know? Dijingye asked with a smile. He was shameless enough to ask Muronyu directly, hoping that Muronyu would take him out of the divine world. Muronyu shook his head. Have you ever thought that once Xie Changping becomes a divine, heavenly sovereign, he will take revenge after you have chased him for so long? Dijingye and the others were stunned. They had never thought about this question. However, Xie Changping would definitely take revenge. At that time, not only would he kill all the people who chased him, but also their tribe would be wiped out. Do you mean we should kill Xie Changping? However, if we kill him, no matter who gets the immortal blood soul, he will be hunted down endlessly. It will be a vicious cycle. Muronyu just smiled faintly. He did not care about this. Even if Xie Changping did become a divine, heavenly sovereign, it had nothing to do with him. Once the eastern wilderness was resurrected, the whole desolate world would collapse, and everyone in it would die. Moreover, the divine world might also be destroyed. He just wanted to kill the eastern wilderness and not let it come back to life. First Elder D, what do you know about this world? While talking, Muronyu set up a restriction around them to soundproof them and prevent others from probing in with their divine thoughts. What do you mean? First Elder D looked at Muronyu in confusion. Do you know about the existence of Desolate? Dijingye's face suddenly changed. Do you mean something big is going to happen in our world? It has something to do with Desolate? Murongyu's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Dijingye knew something, so he continued to ask, what do you know about Desolate? The Desolate world is Desolate's internal world. We have always lived in Desolate's body. Every big tribe has a history book to record the formation of this world. Therefore, the first elder and the chief of the Green Sun tribe all know about it. While speaking, Dijingye's face became serious. I guess you also know about it in the divine world. Is our world going to be destroyed? Muronyu could not help but smile bitterly. Do you think the divine world is good? Dijingye nodded. They lived in Desolate's body. How good could it be? You live in Desolate's internal world, while we live in Desolate's body. What's the difference between our worlds? Besides, the most important thing now is that someone wants to revive the Eastern Wilderness, the master of your desolate world. Once the Eastern Wilderness is revived, not only will the desolate world be destroyed in an instant, but the divine world will also be severely damaged. Dijingye's face changed greatly, but he could not completely believe Muronyu. I know you still have some doubts, but now there is a war between the human race and the monster race in the divine world, and the war is on Eastern Wilderness's body. The Eastern Wilderness is going to be revived day by day. Since there is a passage here, I can take you to the divine world. Now, you can gather the experts of the top tribes in the desolate world and other independent cultivators. Seeing that Muronyu didn't look like he was lying, Dijingye's expression turned even more solemn. It's not difficult to gather them, but some people may not believe it. When I take you to the divine world, they have a chance to believe it, Muronyu said indifferently. Now, to organize the revival of the Eastern Wilderness, neither the desolate world nor the divine world would work. The two worlds must unite. Therefore, Muronyu came up with this plan. Chapter 1135. Under Dijingye's manipulation, many super experts left the godly Dawn Mountain. After all, no one could enter the passage, even though it was right in front of them. Watching them here would only make them more depressed. However, as these super experts retreated, even more people arrived at the godly Dawn Mountain. These people had received the news from various sources. Although they heard that no one had entered the passage yet, they all wanted to give it a try. Who knew if they would be able to enter the passage? Chiu State City. Ever since dozens of super experts had appeared at the same time last time, for some unknown reason, many more super experts had come to this place in the past few days. What was more surprising was that this time, the super experts from the major tribes of the wasteland world, or some rogue cultivators, had shown up in Chiu State City. Dijingya was extremely fast. In less than a month, almost all the super tribes of the wasteland world had arrived. Of course, if Dijingya was alone, he wouldn't have been able to gather so many people. He had used the Green Sun tribe, its allies, and friends to mobilize them. Finally, these people had arrived. Dijingya, if you have something to say, just say it. What's your motive for gathering us all here? In a luxurious manner in Chiu State City, the experts from the major tribes had gathered in the main hall. At this moment, a super expert from the Green Sun tribe's rival, the Green Sun tribe, looked at Dijingya with displeasure. The Green Sun tribe was the sworn enemy of the Green Sun tribe and should not have appeared here. However, the Green Sun tribe had not only invited the Green Sun tribe, but also other major tribes. Therefore, the Green Sun tribe had sent people over because they were worried that the Green Sun tribe would take advantage of them. However, the Green Sun tribe treated them like masters, which annoyed the Green Sun tribe's experts. Therefore, some people mocked them. Now that almost all the top tribes of the wasteland world are here, Dijingya, you don't have to keep us in suspense. Just say it. After the expert from the Green Feather tribe, a super expert from an ally of the Green Feather tribe said coldly. Dijingya only glanced at the two people and their tribes and sneered. This time, I only invited you here. I didn't force you. If you want to leave, we will definitely not stop you. However, don't blame me for not upgrading first. This is related to your lives, your tribe, and even the entire wasteland. Tang Xingteng, who was the super expert from the Golden Feather tribe, sneered at Dijingya. Don't tell me the end of the world is coming. We're here to save the world. Hearing that, the others also looked at Dijingya in shock and confusion. When the Green Sun tribe invited them, they were told that there was something very important to discuss, but they did not know what it was. Dijingya, as well as the experts of the Green Sun tribe and their allies who knew the truth, all looked solemn. First, Elder D, since almost everyone is here, let's make the announcement, an ally of the Green Sun tribe said in a low voice. Dijingya nodded and slowly glanced at everyone present. Then, he said in a deep voice, Tang Xingteng is right. Our world is indeed going to end soon. Ha ha! Before Dijingya's voice faded away, many people in the hall couldn't help but burst into laughter. Tang Xingteng's laughter was the loudest. Grand Elder D, did you gather all of us here because of this matter? Are you kidding? Deng Junba, an expert at the peak of the Saint grade of the Gale tribe, said. First Elder D, stop joking. Let's get down to business, said Cheng Zijin. He was a super expert of the Thousand Bird tribe and was very powerful. At this moment, Tang Xingteng stopped laughing. He looked at Dijingya with a murderous look and said coldly, Dijingya, you'd better give us a satisfactory answer today, or I won't spare you. The allies of the Golden Feather tribe also nodded slightly and looked at Dijingya with murderous looks. If you don't believe me, you can get out of here immediately. Before Dijingya could speak, a figure appeared out of thin air in the hall. Then, a young man in black appeared in everyone's sight. Who else could it be but Murongyu? Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you speak so rudely? Tang Xingteng was furious. As he spoke, he abruptly struck out with his hand, aiming for Murongyu's head in an attempt to kill him. Since Murongyu could enter this place, he must be qualified. It was precisely because of this that Tang Xingteng had taken action immediately. If he could suppress or kill Murongyu in one fell swoop, it would serve as an example to others. If there were any benefits, the Golden Feather tribe would reap more benefits. Seeing Tang Xingteng attack, Dijingya sneered. He had witnessed Murongyu's terror and arrogance in the godly Husk Mountain with his own eyes. If Tang Xingtung dared to attack his opponent, he would definitely suffer a tragedy. Other than Di Jingye, no one else knew Murong. However, no one stopped him. They just watched coldly. A cold glint flashed across Murong face. There were thousands of experts at the peak of the Saint grade sitting in the hall. Even if he told them the truth, they might not cooperate. Of course, if they knew that Murong could bring them out of the realm of the gods, they would fight to cooperate. However, how many of them would sincerely cooperate? Once they left the deserted world, they might disappear immediately after appearing in the deserted world. Therefore, Murong had to use his absolute strength to intimidate them. Even if they did not submit to him, they would not dare to disobey his orders. Just as Murong was thinking about how to make an example out of them, Tang Xingting attacked. Wasn't this the same as giving Murong an opportunity? Thousand Army Elephant Fist. Murong secretly increased his strength to the maximum. Then, he threw out a punch at Tang Xingting. Boom! The two huge fists collided in midair. There was no earth-shattering sound, nor was there a terrifying shockwave. Everyone only heard a dull thud. In the next moment, everyone saw Tang Xingting's arm break inch by inch. His entire body was sent flying. Impossible. Puff! Tang Xingting's face was filled with shock and disbelief. He spat out blood after saying those two words. Killing you is as easy as killing a chicken. Murong smiled faintly and took a step forward. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Tang Xingting. He reached out his hand and grabbed Tang Xingting, who was sent flying. Tang Xingting roared angrily. He threw out his hand that was not broken and wanted to attack Murong. However, Murong's attack left a strange mark in the air. In the next moment, Tang Xingting felt his neck being strangled. A terrifying power surged from Murong's hand. Instantly, a strong aura of death shrouded Tang Xingting's heart. Tang Xingting was shocked. He circulated his energy and forcefully raised his strength by a notch. With one hand striking toward Murong, he raised his two legs into the air and lashed out towards Murong. How dare you? At that moment, the crowd finally came to their senses. Another super expert from the Golden Feather tribe roared. He jumped up from the table and appeared in front of Murong in an instant. He locked onto Murong's head and threw a punch at him. You're overestimating yourself. Murong sneered and kicked out. Bang! The other super expert of the Golden Feather tribe didn't even know what was going on. He felt as if his body had been smashed by a sacred mountain. Rumble, cracks appeared on his incomparably powerful body as he was sent flying by the kick. In the crowd's eyes, Murong's casual kick landed on the peak Ninth Heaven Divine Great Expert's chest and almost shattered his body. The crowd could not help but gasp. Murong's strength was too terrifying. Get down here. At that moment, Murong roared. His large hand abruptly pulled downwards. Bang! With a loud thud, Murong threw Tang Xingting to the ground with his face flat on the ground. Tang Xingting's body was smashed so deep into the ground that he could no longer be seen. Who is this person? Why is his strength so terrifying? The crowd was shocked. Some of the allies from the Golden Feather tribe and Tang Xingting's close friends who wanted to attack fell silent. They did not dare to attack. Little bastard, I'm going to kill you. Tang Xingting was furious. He exploded the ground and shot up to the sky. With a swoosh, he jumped up from the ground. Get down here. Tang Xingting heard Murong's voice. At the same time, he saw a huge foot descending from the sky. Tang Xingting cursed in his heart. Just as he was about to dodge, the huge foot had already stepped on him. The crowd in the main hall saw that Tang Xingting seemed to have bumped into Murong's foot. Before he could get out of the pit, he was already stepped on by Murong. Cold sweat broke out on the crowd's foreheads, and chills ran down their spines. On the other hand, Tang Xingwe roared in anger and wanted to charge out again. However, he still could not escape from Murong's suppression. In the end, Murong seemed to have lost his patience and directly stomped Tang Xingting to the ground. No matter how Tang Xingting roared in anger, he could not escape from Murong's suppression. As for the other super expert from the Golden Feather tribe, at that moment, he was looking at Murong Yu fearfully from afar. He did not dare to come over. Chapter 1136. For a moment, apart from Tang Xingting's growls, everyone else in the hall held their breaths as they stared at Murong Yu, not daring to make a sound. Even Di Jingye was the same. Murong Yu's warning of Tang Xingting was effective. However, Tang Xingting was still growling, unable to completely suppress him. In fact, if Murong Yu wanted to control him or kill him, it would be very easy. However, if that was the case, the others would definitely hold a grudge against him. After thinking about it, Murong Yu could only seal Tang Xingting for the time being. This time, the hall finally quieted down. Does anyone have any objections? After sealing Tang Xingting, Murong Yu sat down on the main seat in the hall. Regarding this, no one had any objections. If there was someone among them who had the same strength as Murong Yu, no one would have any objections to them sitting in that seat. Of course, Murong Yu wasn't asking him to sit in that seat, but whether anyone had any objections to gathering here. How could anyone dare to have any objections? If he was beaten up by Murong Yu, just like Tang Xingting, even if Murong Yu didn't kill him, he would still lose a lot of face. I believe that everyone has heard of or seen people from the God Realm recently. Does everyone feel that the people from the God Realm are only SOSO and weak? Looking at everyone, Murong Yu said indifferently. Everyone's face showed disdain. Just as Murong Yu said, the people from the God Realm were weak. Most of them couldn't even reach the low-tier realm. If they could go to the God Realm, they could easily become the overlords of the God Realm. I am from the God Realm. Seeing everyone's expression, Murong Yu couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Everyone turned pale with fright and looked at Murong Yu with astonishment. They felt that it was inconceivable. How could Murong Yu, a person from the God Realm, be so powerful? There are plenty of people in the God Realm who are stronger than me. If you go to the God Realm, any random person will be able to suppress you. Murong Yu sneered. These people had strong physical bodies. It would not be easy to kill them, but suppression was different. After all, they were only in the heavenly deity realm. Anyone with a higher cultivation level could easily suppress them. Maybe you don't believe me, but I can take you out of desolate world and into God world. Hiss, in an instant, the thousands of experts present were excited. They all looked at Murong Yu with burning eyes. They all wanted to leave the desolate world and enter the God world. It's not easy to become a saint. Moreover, both the desolate world and the divine world are in great danger. Is what Di Jingye said true? An expert asked in a deep voice. Di Jingye said, I'm sure everyone knows the nature of our desolate world. It was desolate's internal space. Right now, the people above were trying to revive Huang. Once desolate revives, our world will immediately collapse. At that time, we will all be annihilated. Di Jingye, is what you said true? Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the hall changed drastically. They only knew of desolate's existence. They also knew that if what Di Jingye said was true, they would definitely die. It's all true. Right now, the human race and the monster race in the God world are at war. The people above are the ones who started the war. How can you be so sure that they want to revive the eastern desolate world and not the other desolates? You can't be thinking of tricking us out, then suppressing us and unifying the desolate world, right? A peak saint expert looked at Murong Yu with hesitation. He did not believe him. Swoosh! Many people looked at Murong Yu. They all felt that the expert's words were reasonable. You, apart from your strong physical bodies, your cultivation level is simply trash. Like I said, in the God realm, anyone can suppress you. Moreover, I have a super force in the God world. What's the use of suppressing you? While speaking, Murong Yu showed a disdainful expression. He really felt that it was funny. If he wanted to subdue them, he would rather subdue the quasi-saint experts. They were much more powerful. Although the saint experts in the desolate world had strong physical bodies, once they reached the quasi-saint level, their strength would definitely be terrifying. However, Who could guarantee that they could reach the quasi-saint level? Just like the quasi-saint experts in the God world. They were powerful, but how many of them could reach the saint level? Even in the desolate world? Once the Eastern desolate world is revived, the desolate world will definitely collapse. The God world will most likely be destroyed. Because of this, I entered the desolate world to completely destroy the Eastern desolate world. However, I found that the desolate world alone is not enough to destroy the Eastern desolate world. Therefore, the desolate world and the God world must unite. In fact, even if I don't say it, you all know about it. Recently, there have been many strange phenomena in the desolate world. You must have noticed it. I gathered you here to bring you out and discuss with the big forces in the God world to completely destroy the Eastern desolate world. If you don't believe me, you can leave now. I will bring those who believe me out of the desolate world. However, don't blame me for not warning you in advance. If you want to use me to leave the desolate world, although the God world is big, there is no place for you. After saying this, Muronyu closed his eyes and rested. As for the others, they started to discuss among themselves. Some people believed Muronyu, while others did not believe him at all. They all had their own opinions, and it would be impossible to come to a decision in a short time. Haha, it's so lively here. Just as everyone was discussing, a loud laugh was heard. At the same time, a few figures shot over from afar. All of them had surging blood chi, and their auras soared to the sky. They were all experts at the peak of the saint level. There were a total of 5 of them. They were from the Bloodflame tribe. When they saw those experts, many people couldn't help but frown. The Bloodflame tribe was very powerful. In one tribe, there were 5 experts at the peak of the 9th heaven of the saint level. However, the Golden Feather tribe only had 2. I heard that you are gathered here. Am I too late? A young man laughed as he strode into the palace. However, when he saw Muronyu, who was sitting in the main seat, his eyes slightly narrowed as an intense killing intent flashed through them. There's a good show to watch. Seeing the people from the Bloodflame tribe, everyone in the main hall fell silent. Kid, get down here. Who do you think you are? How dare you sit here? The young man looked at Muronyu and shouted. At the same time, he took a step forward and pounced on Muronyu. He actually attacked. The Bloodflame tribe has always been arrogant and condescending. Let's see how arrogant they are this time. Everyone in the main hall sneered. Speaking of the Bloodflame tribe, everyone in the desolate world knew of their existence. They were arrogant, despotic, condescending, tyrannical, and forceful. If any treasure appeared, the people from the Bloodflame tribe would immediately clear the place. For a gathering like today, they would definitely be the last to arrive. If they were the last to arrive and defeated the person in charge of the gathering, they would naturally become the ones in charge. If there were any treasures, the Bloodflame tribe would definitely take 90% of it. Countless people were unhappy with the Bloodflame tribe. Countless people wanted to destroy the Bloodflame tribe. However, the Bloodflame tribe was extremely powerful. They had 5 experts at the peak of the divine level and countless experts at the divine level. No one dared to touch them. The more it was so, the more arrogant the Bloodflame tribe became. The Bloodflame tribe is a black sheep. I don't think there's a need for such a tribe to continue existing. What do you all think? Muronyu, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and said slowly. Everyone agreed with Muronyu's words. However, no one said anything on the surface. If Muronyu didn't kill them, those who agreed with him would definitely suffer a tragedy. Kill. Muronyu didn't attack personally this time. He shouted and took out the yin-yang cauldron. Rumble. The sky cracked open and the yin-yang cauldron flew out. As soon as it appeared, the hearts of everyone in the hall were shrouded by a terrifying aura of death. At this moment, they couldn't help but retreat. Insignificant skill. The young man from the Bloodflame tribe sneered and punched at the yin-yang cauldron. Primal chaos flame explode. Muronyu shouted in his heart. Suddenly, the yin-yang cauldron that was rapidly descending shook violently. Suddenly, a large amount of black flame of primordial chaos shattered the sky. It seemed to have come from the primordial age as it rushed towards the young man. The young man was horrified when he sensed the terrifying aura of death in his heart. He wanted to retreat immediately. However, at this moment, Moronyu reached out his hand and grabbed at the void. The young man felt as though he was imprisoned. His speed suddenly dropped as though he was stuck in a swamp. Space Shackle. At this crucial moment, Moronyu directly used Space Shackle. This was the first time Moronyu used Space Shackle after entering the desolate world. Swoosh! The moment the young man stopped, the primal chaos flame had already covered the sky. With just a light sound, the young expert from the Blood Flame tribe was annihilated just like the space around him. He disappeared without a trace, leaving nothing behind. He was killed directly. Seeing this scene, everyone in the hall fell silent, especially Tang Xingting, who had been cursing Moronyu in his heart. He broke out in cold sweat and immediately became obedient. It was too terrifying. Moronyu didn't even make a move to kill that expert. Just how strong was he? Hand over your life. The other 4 experts from the Blood Flame tribe finally reacted. They roared and charged at Moronyu, wanting to kill him. At this moment, Moronyu slowly stood up and sneered as he looked at the 4 super experts. Chapter 1137. You guys are really digging your own graves, Moronyu sneered. As he spoke, his eyes shone with chilling, murderous intent. At the same time, the yin-yang cauldron pierced through the air, and the flame of primordial chaos that burst out annihilated everything. The 4 peaked divine heavenly sovereigns were furious. They ignored the flame of primordial chaos and charged at Moronyu. They thought that as long as they killed Moronyu's legendary weapon would be useless to them. However, would Moronyu be killed so easily? Space imprisonment. Space barrier. Moronyu used the space rules of order as soon as he attacked. Immediately, huge and tough spatial arms appeared between him and the Blood Flame tribe's experts. At the same time, the space around the 4 of them was imprisoned. All of a sudden, they felt like they were in a swamp, and it was difficult for them to move. The 4 of them were shocked. They finally knew why the young man stopped at the crucial moment. It wasn't that he wanted to stop, but that he was imprisoned. While the 4 of them were imprisoned, the flame of primordial chaos had already covered the sky. The 4 of them roared in their hearts and looked at each other. He unleashed his strongest attack and blasted it out fiercely. Suddenly, the power of the space imprisonment was shattered by their combined strength. Their bodies swayed, and they were about to dash out of the range of the flame of primordial chaos. Hichu Luoshu. Moronyu sneered. He took out the Hichu Luoshu and opened its mouth. Suddenly, the 4 experts who had fled in all directions seemed to have taken the initiative to dash into the Hichu Luoshu, and they disappeared from everyone's sight. Here, they come again. Seeing that, Dijingye's heart skipped a beat. Back then, Moronyu had crippled the peak divine, heavenly sovereign in the same way. Swoosh! When the 4 of them disappeared, Moronyu disappeared too. However, the 5 of them soon reappeared in everyone's sight. The time was extremely short, so much so that many people had the misconception that something was wrong. They felt that the disappearance of Moronyu's group of 5 was just an illusion. However, the scene in front of them told them that what they had just seen had really happened and that they were not hallucinating. At this moment, Moronyu was still standing in front of the main seat, looking ahead with a calm expression. Not far in front of Moronyu, 4 experts who had been beaten into a pile of mud were lying on the ground, looking at Moronyu angrily. What's the situation? Moronyu crippled them in an instant? For a moment, all the experts in the hall were dumbfounded. Each and every one of them looked at Moronyu in disbelief. Especially Tang Xingting, who had been sealed by Moronyu, was sweating profusely. Lingering fear filled him. The people of the Blood Flame tribe being crippled or even killed, I'm sure you guys will be happy to see that, right? This kind of person should be killed directly. However, they're all at the pinnacle of the divine, heavenly sovereign level, so it's a pity to kill them. As he spoke, Moronyu took a step forward and arrived in the middle of the 4 experts. Soul control. Everyone felt a wave of soul fluctuations. In the next moment, they saw the four peak experts, who were originally glaring at Murong-Yu with incomparably venomous gazes, turn into tamed sheep. The resentment in their eyes was gone, and there was only respect left. Their souls are being controlled. Everyone in the hall could not help but change their expression slightly. Everyone present was one of the top experts in the desolate world. If their souls were being controlled and they became someone else's henchmen, just the thought of it was terrifying. They've been beaten up to this state, so it's useless even if their souls are being controlled. It's impossible for them to recover their physical bodies to their peak without a long period of time. Someone shook his head in confusion. Their injuries are extremely serious. If they were to heal themselves, they might not be able to recover to their peak state even after tens or hundreds of thousands of years. However, in front of me, even more serious injuries are not a problem. As if he sensed everyone's thoughts, Murong-Yu smiled confidently. At the same time, the torrent-like life force was divided into 4 parts and quickly rushed into the 4 experts' bodies. Immediately, everyone was shocked to see the 4 heavily injured experts' bodies recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than 2 hours, the 4 of them had completely recovered to their peak state. Saint Lord, after recovering to their peak state, the 4 of them were shocked. However, there was more respect in their eyes. After bowing to Murong-Yu, the 4 of them stood on either side of the main seat. Gulp. The sound of saliva swallowing could be heard. Everyone in the hall was shocked and stunned. Who was Murong-Yu? Not only was he powerful, but his medical skills were also terrifying. Have you finished your discussion? I won't force you. However, if you don't cooperate, once the desolate world collapses, I won't care about you and your tribes. If you cooperate with me, even if we can't destroy the desolate world, even if the desolate world collapses, I can still save your lives. As he spoke, Murong-Yu removed the seal on Tang Xingting. Tang Xingting, who felt that he had regained his freedom, immediately jumped up from the ground. Then, he looked at Murong-Yu with a serious expression and said, I represent the Golden Feather Tribe and sincerely cooperate with you. I won't play any tricks. Hearing that, everyone, including Murong-Yu, looked at Tang Xingting in shock. Tang Xingting smiled bitterly and explained, I wasn't controlled by Murong-Yu, and he didn't threaten me. However, I know the severity of the situation. At first, I only suspected that Dijingye was talking nonsense. However, after seeing Murong-Yu's strength, I believe in Murong-Yu. Moreover, with his strength, he can easily control us and even unify the desolate world. However, he didn't do that. We can see his sincerity. Therefore, I believe in Murong-Yu. Our Green Sun tribe and other allies also believe in Murong-Yu and choose to cooperate with him, Dijingye said in a low voice before Tang Xingting's voice had died away. The others fell silent. Tang Xingting's words were reasonable. Murong-Yu had shown enough sincerity by negotiating with them. If they still doubted anything, they would really be gauging the heart of a gentleman with their own mean measure. Immediately, they all expressed their willingness to cooperate with Murong-Yu. Before long, all the people in the hall had expressed their opinions. No one objected. Very good. Everyone is very cooperative. This time, I will take you to the divine world to discuss with the giants of the divine world to find a way to destroy the desolate world. However, before leaving the desolate world, we have to do one thing. Murong-Yu, you mean the immortal blood soul, right? Dijingye asked. Everyone's eyes flashed with passion. Obviously, they coveted and coveted the immortal blood soul. After all, it was a treasure that could help them become saints. Murong-Yu smiled faintly. Do you think the immortal blood soul can help you become saints? It's recorded in the history books. It shouldn't be wrong, an expert said in a low voice. Looking at everyone's expressions, Murong-Yu's smile became more and more brilliant. If you all think so, then you're wrong. There are saints in the divine world, but they are all fake saints. They don't dare to ascend. Why? Everyone was shocked. There were saints in the divine world? Murong-Yu was so powerful. Was he a saint? Don't misunderstand. I'm not even a quasi-saint, let alone a quasi-saint. However, since you have cooperated with me, I'll share some information about the divine world with you. As he spoke, light spots shot out from Murong Yu's palm and appeared in front of everyone's eyes. These were all memories. Everyone refined the light spot without any hesitation. Then, their expressions changed one after another. It's so difficult to become a saint. If not, the experts of the 4 great academies or the demon race will be killed when they ascend. In an instant, everyone's hearts turned cold. It was a huge blow. Murong Yu, according to what you said, we can't ascend to the divine world? A super expert asked with an ugly expression. He had suffered a huge blow. Naturally, he didn't look good. Joining the 4 great academies or the demon race will give you a chance to ascend. However, you should know how difficult it is to ascend. You'll understand this when you reach the God realm. I want the immortal blood soul. Do you have any objections? No one had any objections. Even if they did, they wouldn't dare to say it out loud. If Murong Yu turned against them, they would be in trouble. Because even if they obtained the immortal blood soul, if they didn't join the 4 great academies or the demon race, they would be killed even if they ascended. All right, no one has any objections. Now, let's use all our power to find out where Xie Qingping is. Remember, the sooner we destroy the eastern wilderness, the sooner the desolate world will be safe. Immediately, everyone left and began to search for Xie Qingping's whereabouts. Murong Yu, although you haven't unified the desolate world, you're almost there. Situ Xian and the others walked out of the Hichu Luoshu, then looked at Murong Yu with disdain. I'm doing this for your own good. If it doesn't concern you, even if the desolate world collapses, you'd still be indifferent. Situ Xian didn't like Murong Yu. Girl, I originally wanted to bring you out of the desolate world to the divine world to see the world. But let's forget about it for now. You can stay here, Murong Yu said with a darkened face. Did I say anything just now? Did I? I didn't, right? Situ Xian's disdain disappeared in an instant. Only a smile was left on her face. Although the desolate world was huge, when all the super tribes united, there was no place for Xie Qingping. In less than 10 days, Murong Yu already knew the exact location of Xie Qingping's hiding place. Immediately, Murong Yu led a large group of experts and charged forward with murderous intent. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.